11. Time is 8 o'clock. It's 2014. Lynn, welcome. Thank you for showing up this morning so early. You got your first on the agenda. You probably know everybody, but we have some new members who appeared last year, so I'm going to ask everybody just to introduce themselves. But again, the reason we asked you to come in is, one, you have a great presentation, and it's important. It's rolled into our budget, and we think that everyone of the select board members need to hear the great work they're doing over the library. So with that aside, John, why don't you start introducing yourself and we're around the table?
John McFadden. Tom Jacobs.
Hi, Tom.
Justin Corcoran.
I know everyone.
You jump around the table now. Great.
Oh, great, man.
I don't think we've met.
Okay, and again,
Sorry.
you're not on any time schedule, so you just passed out something for us, the library, so if you just want to go over that or however you want to do it, go
Sure.
ahead and begin.
Joe,
And introduce yourself for the people at home, okay?
I'm Lynn Fonda McCann. I'm the director of the Bennington Free Library and a lifelong resident of Bennington.
Great.
Thank you for asking me to come this morning. I always look forward to an opportunity to talk to the board about library and what we're doing and our budget. And with your permission, I'll just talk a little bit about the budget and,
Sure.
and the reason for the increase and what we've been doing. I think we sent out a packet, of course, to earlier, and you've had a chance to look at that, I hope. And you'll see that a lot of our items on our budget have been level funded, or even in some cases we've reduced them slightly. But one of the increases is for our personnel line, and what we're asking the board this year to fund is a full-time personnel maintenance position. Right now, we currently have 2 part-time people that work on maintenance, and the hours actually would be the same, but the difference in the budget and in the personnel line would be to offer them life insurance. It's a benefit cost.
Yep.
Or not life insurance, excuse me, health insurance. The reason it's a big building, it's 2 buildings really, and 2 part-time people, it's not very efficient. We feel like having someone there throughout the day would allow them to address issues that currently, you know, if we have snow or something backs up, the ladies on the desk have to deal with it, or I have to deal with it, or other staff. We have to put on our coat, go out, shovel snow, do whatever needs to be done. Having someone there throughout the day would allow them to address those issues. And also, we're thinking that over time we'll achieve some savings, because a full-time person will be able to do a little painting, will be able to do landscaping, and some of the work that we currently pay outside vendors to take care of. So we think that would be, we think that it's a legitimate expense, and we're asking the board to fund that. Other than that,
The salary, just curious.
it's about what we're paying a person now. This is,
It looks like it's an $18,000 delta on the personnel, so I'm assuming that would cover any of their additional
oh, yeah,
expenses.
yeah. I can't talk about salaries, sorry.
Are the part-timers, if you put them into a full-time or one into a full-time position, would that equate pretty much to what you're paying? Except for the
It's a little bit
because
more,
of health insurance.
because one part-time doesn't make as much as the building supervisor does, but this position would be funded at the level that we're currently paying the building supervisor. And that person would be there all day long, so he'd be able to see, oh geez, we need to deal with this, or I need to call, the plumber or whatever. Right now, I'm very involved with a lot of that stuff, and it'd be nice to just have somebody that can take care of the building and let me think about other things. Okay. So yeah, the difference between the part-time and the full-time maintenance position is $9,682 in the budget. So you can see in our if you look at our repairs and maintenance of the building, I've reduced that slightly, and that's in anticipation of some savings that we'll achieve. We don't know, it would be the first year, of course, so it's all, just speculation, but I do think that over time, it'll be better in terms of the building maintenance. There are rooms that haven't been painted since the 80s or before. We really want to keep it up as much as we can. We've been consistently maintaining the building and having the roof looked at every year, and all the systems upgraded and cleaned and serviced, so that we're having fewer and fewer unanticipated problems with the building.
Lynn, in the past, different the nonprofits that stepped forward and done some projects over at the library. Are there any anticipated for this fiscal year?
We have meeting rooms, of course, that are available for people to
Yeah, I was
use.
thinking like the walkway, I think was done by a Rotary Club a few years ago, and or some other maintenance things done?
Yeah, not at this point.
Not at this point,
We've
okay.
been pretty busy with this whole fiber optic thing.
Right.
And, the packets that I handed out, you see, we're going live on Monday. This afternoon, we're gonna close early and do our data transfer. This is a really something that we've been looking forward to, and we were invited to be involved in this as they beta tested the system 6 years ago, but it didn't make sense for us at the time because we were going through a transition with Anita leaving and myself coming on. But now that we'll be the first library to go to join the network, and this will allow the community a lot more flexibility in terms of access to books from the member libraries. They'll be able to order books directly from them. And there's more flexibility in terms of what you can do with your account than we currently could with the existing system. Also, we're gonna save money with this. We pay our current automated vendor thousands of dollars every year, and although it's not gonna cut in half or probably a third, the expenses will be reduced considerably. And also, we won't have to buy equipment. If you remember, when the first year I was here, we had a $12,000 expense to replace the servers at the library. This will all be in the cloud now, so we won't have that equipment expense in the future. So over time, it'll improve our services, increase access for the community, and reduce our costs. So it just seemed like a very good thing to do. And it's the way other libraries are going in the community, in the state. I mean, eventually, we hope to have a statewide library system, as many other states do. Let me see, I think that's about it. Does anyone have any questions?
I think, talking about the budget, if you just go over the town support, so the board members understand, Bennington's not the only one providing support.
No, we also receive funding from Shasberry and Woodford, and this is, Bennington obviously is proportionately the largest percentage of our patrons. And so we've asked Shasberry and Woodford for more support. Woodford proportionately is the highest increase. What we're asking for at this point is 4.8% or $18,000 more in our budget, and that chiefly is to fund the increases, modest increases for the salary, the new full-time position. So it's not just Bennington that's bearing the expense for the library. The communities of Shasberry and Woodford are as well. Powell has its own library, so they don't pay into it. North Bennington funds the library through the general fund.
I think the other thing you're interested everybody is you have a tremendous group of volunteers. If you just talk a little bit about the service that they provide that cuts down on the amount of money you have to spend or hire more people to do.
Well, our library volunteers gave us, I believe, over 2,000 hours of service last year, and if you parse it out by the minimum wage, it's a lot of money. And they help us with preparing books for the catalog and for people to use by covering them and so checking them in. We have people that are maintaining the stacks. We have people that come and work on doing deliveries to local daycare and childcare centers. Those are that's pretty important. Book sale is a very big one. That's hundreds of hours of volunteer time that are put into throughout the year to sort books and to box them, to get them, transport them over to the Baptist church, and of course to work on the book sale itself, which raises, I think last year we cleared $11,000, which all goes into supporting our programs at the library. It's a lot of work. We couldn't do what we do without our volunteers, and we have a really good, solid group of volunteers that support the library and put in a lot of hours. I think I averaged it out. On average, they dedicate about 20 hours individually to the library, which is a lot of time.
Lynn, I want to thank you for coming. We always discuss if we should make you come down here in the middle of the night like this. But the reason I like to see is because I think it's great information for the taxpayers. The service you provide and the efficiency with which you provide it is impressive. The new board members, I'm sure, are as impressed as I was last year when I first got access to this information. Two of the huge points you make in your presentation is that 80% of the money spent by the taxpayers goes right back, or by the library goes right back into the community and salaries and local contractors. And also the adult component of access to the internet, retraining, you know, the job opportunities that exist by having access to a high-quality library, I think is really important to maintain. So I want to thank you for that, and I just want to point that out as one of the key factors that's over there, I think.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks.
Lynn, you wanna cover anything else general about the operation of the library?
No, I think, last year, of course, we received a loan from the state to remove our underground storage tanks, which our timing was perfect on that, because they really were, just about at the point where we were gonna start to have problems. So we'll be paying that back. It's a 0% loan over the next 10 years, and that's included in the budget. We'd hoped to move forward on our roof, because that is gonna be in need of attention, and I received a small grant, but work was in anticipation of receiving a larger grant, which did not come through, so I'll continue to look for funding sources for that. In the meantime, we'll just keep repairing the roofs over and over every year. No, I appreciate, the board has been very supportive of the library. I think we have a great little library. I know I've been using it since I could read, and I thank you for your interest and your support.
Okay, we'll move around, John.
When looking at this resource, I guess I like how you broke down the type of people or the number of people that came and visited. I saw 13,000 for 190 plus programs. Is that 13,000 different people, or is that 13,000 people signing in, and one person could sign into 191 programs, and they're counted 191 times?
Correct. It's people that participate in the programs. Yeah.
So do you have a breakdown? Because again, I see 78,000 people visited the library. And
No.
obviously, those aren't
No.
different people. Do we have a breakdown of who is actually utilizing this massive resource, and again, broken down by town and where they're coming from?
We don't have at this point, I can't say, 4,700 Shasberry people visited the library. We're just doing a count of bodies that walk through the door. I do know that we have over 8,000 active patrons at the library, and some people come in every day, some people come in a couple times a week, some people come in once a year. But it also doesn't, number of visitors doesn't account for the people that are accessing our resources remotely from home.
Right.
We don't really have a way of tracking that at this point, but we'll work on it. It's, there's a lot of activity at the library. If you come down and spend a day there, especially since we've gone with the Wi-Fi, excuse me, we have the fiber optic, you see a lot of people just sitting in there working at the computers. They're almost always full.
Right.
And sitting at tables taking advantage of the Wi-Fi, using their laptops and such. So the library is a very busy place. We bring a lot of people downtown every day.
Yeah.
But you also have a large number of school programs for the school-age children.
We do. We have workshops after school, and actually the children's librarians are very proactive about going out to the schools and even the daycare centers and bringing children in for programs. So we have story hours, which are geared for people and infants. We're offering resources for people from the time before they can even walk, and they're crawling around upstairs during the story hours till the end of their life, when perhaps their sight is not good. So we have audio books. We have a large print computer. We really cover the whole spectrum of ages at the library, and we're very aware of that and try very hard to make sure that everybody's represented in the services that we provide.
Okay, Tom?
Well, I have one more question. You had 654 new members last year. What does that bring your total up to?
Oh, God, I about a little over 8,000.
8,000.
Yeah.
Registered borrowers.
9,000, excuse me, yep.
Oh, okay.
So those are people that are registered, that are actively
Right.
coming to the library and using our resources, or have a card and are logging in from home and using the online databases,
Yep.
or downloading audiobooks or ebooks or whatever it is that they need.
Thank you.
Tom?
It's a great resource, and I know for a fact my grandkids have been crawling around during story hour up in there. And so it's a resource that this community is well served, and I appreciate it personally as well as for the community. Thank you.
Justin?
The only question I have is, I know last year we talked about seeing if we could correlate fuel purchases to see a savings in that. Is that something that you were able to look into? And
Yes, I do. This year I got in touch with Mr. McLeod, and we looked at what you had paid in the past year, and I think my cover letter to Stu, we're still paying a very good rate, we think, at West Oil with a pre-buy. And I'll continue to look at that every year. look at what your rate is versus what we're paying and, you know, make a decision yearly based on
Sure.
what the best value is for the library in terms of fuel.
Have you checked into that at all? If, you know, if we're looking to make larger purchases, if we can get a better rate, cause you use a significant amount of fuel in the.
We do,
organization.
actually, we're down from about 10,000 gallons with the, doing the energy efficiency upgrades, we're
Mhm.
down. Last year was warm, so it's hard to say, we're
Right.
averaging around 6,000, 6,500 gallons, which
The whole
is
building.
That's good, that's a
for
good-
two buildings,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, of course, we keep it a
Down
little
from
cool in
10,000.
there too.
Down,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes, yeah, well, insulating the roofs in both of the buildings has made a big difference.
It's 30%.
Yeah, it's huge, it's huge.
Justin, any more?
No, that was my question.
Jim?
No, sir.
Greg?
I'm all set, thank you.
Sharon?
No, we just have a beautiful facility and certainly support.
I should know this answer, but is the building on historical register?
It is in the historic district, but it is
District,
not,
okay,
yes,
all right.
yeah.
Well, again, we thank you for coming in, and again, great brief, and I concur with what you've heard around the table. It's a tremendous service to all ages. When you look at 9,000 borrowers, you take out a small sum for probably Shasberry and Woodford. Probably half of our citizens of Bennington are probably carrying a card around somewhere near there. So, again, thanks a lot for coming in this early Saturday morning, and we appreciate it, and continue to do the great work you do.
Thank you, and I'd like to continue to come every year. I don't mind getting
We
up
will,
early at
Vice
all.
Chair.
It's good with you. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Okay, Stuart, you wanna go through rec first, or you wanna take RJ up front, or how do you wanna?
Well, we can, since Tracy's sitting
Tracy's here.
here, we can take Parks and Recreation.
Okay, let's do that, so, cause
Larry.
RJ will probably be a little bit longer than Tracy.
And Larry would normally be here to talk a little bit about facilities, but he's battling a flu, I guess, or something of that nature, so.
So we're on which page?
In the budget, it's page 8 of 17.
8 of 17.
And the explanation, the highlights is page 5.
Page 5. Good morning,
Morning.
and for those who may not know you, please introduce yourself and your position in our town.
Tracy Knights, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Okay, Tracy, why don't you go ahead and take us through the highlights first of your budget?
Do you have that
Do you
sheet?
I
have
don't
this
have
here?
it.
Let me give you here. Tracy. These are the highlights and then the actual budget. Go with it. You're welcome.
Okay.
All right.
Generally, what we try to do with the highlight is talk a little bit about the small tools and equipment purchases and some of the project opportunities that we have. So you'll see that most of these highlights have to do with small equipment purchases.
Okay.
Chase, you want to talk about them, or you just,
Okay, as far as the new desk for myself, or for the director, right now, my desk is this right now. I have a table. It's a nice long table though. So I would like to upgrade to have a desk. And cardio equipment in the weight room, we could use another stepper and a rower. We have 2 treadmills currently, an elliptical, 3 bikes, and 1 stepper, so we could use 1 more stepper, and the rower is the big ticket that everybody wants.
At the concept too, really.
Yeah, yeah. We'd like to get 9 more Frisbee golf course, goals to expand the existing, we only have 9 holes up there now. And it's all, located at the top of the playground and above. We'd like to extend it down to lower around the playing fields to utilize more of that space. We've had a request for that, I mean, that, you may not see them, but that get used quite a bit for people playing Frisbee golf. And they would like, some people would like to have, set up tournaments and stuff, which would be, I think that'd be a great hit. And those goals are, a little costly, they're about anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,200 a piece.
It's like 4,200.
For each hole.
Yeah,
What is the whole comprised of?
Frisbee golf?
Yeah, no, the structure.
I'm surprised it's $1,000, just it's the metal pole that goes up, and then you have your
Chains?
chains that come down, and,
Steel.
and a basket.
Yeah,
Your steel.
Where do
Yeah.
they come from? Is that something that
Some,
we?
is there a fabricator that does this?
not locally.
Mhm.
You could buy, we buy them through BSN Sports, or Mark is looking into other, places maybe around the area, like in Massachusetts or whatever, yeah.
It's a pretty popular sport now.
It's getting popular.
Very popular.
Yeah.
So
Quite
the,
a
so the
lot.
6,200
My son
is the
travels
For what age
includes
group?
the installation and
My son's
the
20.
equipment.
Yes.
He travels all over to play.
Because you also have to have like at a regular golf course, you're teeing off,
Yeah.
the design of where you gotta shoot for the next hole, so that's part of it too, the 6,200.
Do you have an idea of how many people might be using that on a regular basis? I know it's probably difficult to track.
It is difficult to track, but, yeah, I think every day you see somebody up there playing, in groups of people, even like the school groups will come over to teach the kids how to play, as far as they're part of the PE program too.
That's significant.
Yeah. It's right down the road, very middle school.
Go up the hill.
Building improvements to the lower restrooms. Right now, they have wooden partitions, like to upgrade those with, like the ones that we have above, cause the above, building, pavilion now, we have tile flooring, so we don't have to worry about every year bubbling up the linoleum and all that. We'd like to put the new tiling in the bathrooms down below and the new partitions and, fixtures. Cause right now it's all wood and, definitely need something more stable. And painting, a lot of that. That was
Do you
requested by,
contract out the painting, or is it all done?
it's all done in-house,
In-house.
yeah,
And which one is Ross Pavilion? Is that
that's the
up-
lower,
The lower one?
yep,
That trim is rotted already?
Yeah,
yeah,
really?
It's been
Yeah.
there longer than we think.
Yeah.
On the
it
lower
has.
pavilion?
It's been there.
yeah.
How old is that
there?
structure?
Yeah, it's not 5 years.
Yeah, it's not that old.
No, no, it's
Yeah.
more
It's
like
less than-
8.
10, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
even so.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you.
Still doesn't
Welcome to the club.
seem like it.
Do you know the coverage of the basement, in terms of square footage for the ceiling? And what we're
Oh,
estimating?
basement?
Yeah.
I don't know,
Is it a drop ceiling that we're talking about
Yes.
with the, okay.
yes.
What's it being used for down there right now?
Well, 2 of the rooms are storage, one's our filtration room, one's our boiler room. We have one room which, a little bit bigger than this, is where we have meetings, or birthday parties. And the other room, we just finally got rid of this eyesore pool table that we have, and we have a television game room, but, yeah.
So
Now,
you
which
used
building are you
often?
talking about again?
Now we're at the rec building.
Okay,
Is
sorry.
that used often?
Downstairs, yeah. Well, especially on the weekends when we have birthday parties, sometimes we have 2 parties a day,
And
and
what
on
collect
Sundays.
fees for that? For the
Huh?
do you collect fees for,
The birthday parties,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
and how much is that? Just
If
curious.
it's a private time, it's $50, if they're just renting the room, it's 20.
What room are you proposing the ceiling tiles in? Is that in the?
That's the whole basement, the whole basement.
Did it have a leak or something, or is it just?
Well, it's been the same ceiling since 1973. And we, upgrade the lighting like we have above in the main floor. It just needs some TLC. And since
I've
we
got a
won't be
question.
yeah,
On that same, section, the dehumidification, are you talking about, machines?
in,
Or that's the overall cost per year to dehumidify the building?
no, that's to get the equipment,
Okay.
yeah. Because there is not, because in the summertime, the floors are very moist down there because there
There's
isn't
a
any.
pool, great big pool upstairs.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, any questions on that? Anything else? On
So
the
we didn't
basement?
do anything with this air circulation downstairs?
Not in the
The
basement,
ventilation or anything
no,
like that?
no, all of our effort in for ventilation and air circulation was in the pool area.
Was it causing damage down there, the humidity, or?
It does, yeah, I
Any
mean,
mold?
not so far, yeah, but, we've got, we've got 2 staff people that work pretty hard over there to try to combat that kind of thing, but I I really do think that, this, the purchase of these materials our people will do the installation. So, as
Well,
far as,
it's a drop ceiling.
yeah,
Are you replacing dehumidifiers, or are these
That's what I wanted
New.
ones, these are new ones?
Have they-
Because we don't have
otherwise-
one.
You don't
have they
have
never-
it
you've
either
never
now.
had them?
No, yeah.
I guess the only thing I'm hung up on is the ceiling. I'd just like to know the area that it spans across, because when I looked up the tiles, at least for the drop ceiling, it was under $1 a square foot.
These are different kind of ceiling tiles.
Okay, so they're
These aren't your
specific
kind where you
for,
just break in half. These are heavy duty ceiling
Okay.
tiles.
But they're the 2x4 panels, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're 2x4 panels, and I would imagine they've gotta be the fire resistant ones also, and they run about $5 to $6 a piece.
5 to 6 each.
Yep.
They're
How
not-
many square feet is it, Dan?
I don't know offhand.
But it runs the entire length of the basement, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's basically the same square footage as if you were upstairs, minus the filtration and boiler room.
The beauty of those is there's not a high, you're not paying a lot of labor to install them. It's pop
Right.
one out, pop the other one in. And, again, there's an area, there's product that are sold here locally that, we put the money back in the economy here.
I think that's the number that I was looking at too. The 2x4 panels at about 5 or 6 a piece, because you break it down and it's under $1 a square foot. So if we're talking about maybe 2,000 square feet, I think we're under that. You start to ask, where's the $8,000 going? So I know it might be a small detail, but it stuck out to me.
I was kinda wondering about the feasibility of maybe just doing the public spaces in the basement as opposed to the areas that are simply used for storage if they're not molded or damaged, in a way that it's causing a major problem. I guess it's something I would maybe need to actually see.
Let's mark that area, and this is one of the things we'll have discussion on when we wrap everything up, and we'll see where the thing is. I hear the concern, so, okay, we'll look at that one at the end.
Question for you, when you do these purchases, you try your best to
Oh,
keep it
absolutely.
local?
Yeah, it's not just myself, it's Mark Sawyer, Buildings and Grounds Supervisor.
Great, that's good to know.
Yeah.
He likes to save a buck.
Yes.
The LED lighting, that's indoors, you said, right? The lighting upgrade?
Yes,
So we should expect to see some energy savings as well.
that's
switching
pretty
over
much
to
the
LED.
last of what we could do
Yeah.
to the building for
Right.
energy efficient stuff.
Okay, anything else, Dave? Or, Tracy?
Oh, that's it on this
Okay,
list.
let me ask a few questions. You got, on tools, last year we heard that we did not have enough tools at the sports fields, so the organizations using them could get out and do the maintenance required by the organizations. Have we looked at that to make sure that problem's been fixed?
I mean, we do the grading of the fields, but we don't even have the manpower, we don't line the fields.
Yeah, I know.
We make sure everything's in place, like your home plate.
That's
and-
what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is all that stuff there?
Yeah.
And is a line machine there to line the fields in each of the fields?
Well, we don't have a place at the
Are
Rex.
there rakes there that people can
Yeah,
use to
absolutely,
rake
inside the
around home
dugouts.
plate and stuff?
Yeah.
It's all there?
Yeah.
And the other issue from last year was the fees for using these sports fields. Where did we finally come up with that? Did we,
we're gonna institute this year,
okay?
the fee schedule. And I've got that policy up on my desk, we'll probably bring it to you at one of your meetings. It's basically the same policy. We have notified all of the users, all of the teams, so they'll have time to prepare for the upcoming seasons, and they'll be able to pay the cost that we had proposed the last time.
So the
Stu,
fields
part of
were-
the issue was that they couldn't necessarily afford the change in the cost, and so it was going to affect the people that were trying to play,
Right, but
softball.
it was because they didn't have enough time to plan for it, it was just like all of a sudden they went up to pay their fees and the
Right.
fees went up.
Right, but their teams
This
are
year-
of smaller numbers, so they have 12 people on a team, 15 people on a team, so it actually would increase their individual costs.
Right.
And some families have 3 kids playing, so it would increase the cost by $15 a head, and that was seen as problematic. And that's why they're looking to see if there's an alternative for, our youth leagues compared to our adult leagues.
That's what we'll debate when Stuart presents us the fee schedule, and we'll do that before the season begins.
Can I just
Yeah.
make a note, that the issue wasn't so much about the fees, the issue was, these are new people that don't have a clue of what they were doing and no communication amongst those guys, that's what it was.
Right. And the other thing is we were trying to attract some of the adult ball games that were going out of the area back in here in the Bennington, so that would help our program. when we talk about the fields, we're talking Willow Park, we're talking Stark, but name the fields we're talking.
We have the recreation center,
Right,
we have Lower Willow, which you can utilize 2 big fields
Right.
on there. Middle Willow, and Upper Willow, I call Upper Willow 1 is the one with the lights. Upper Willow 2 multi-purpose without the lights. Those are our fields.
what about on Beach Street?
Oh, I forgot about Beach Street.
Okay,
That's flag football and rugby.
okay, so we control that one also,
Yes.
okay.
What about Stark Street?
No,
Field,
there isn't a
there's no
Start,
field there.
you know,
But there's no activity there at all.
you know.
Now, we used to have summer programs for the younger
Right.
kids there, but we're actually moving those, I think, down to the rec center. if I'm-
That's another reason for upgrading the basement, because we lost that space for some time.
And the Stark Street building's actually gonna be used for, gonna be retrofitted for municipal storage. 'Cause we don't have enough space here for
So
what
we
we're
don't have-
trying to store.
A skating rink or anything there anymore
No,
in the wintertime.
I mean, I think there's still a basketball court there,
Yeah.
but that can.
And that actually still gets used.
No playground equipment or anything.
No. A little swing set.
Okay, we'll start with Jim on this time. Anything, Jim? No, sir. Greg?
Just going back to the field policy, as I recall, it was also, there was a discrepancy in cost of using multiple fields on one night versus the same field night after night, you know, on consecutive nights or
That's
something
all
like
in
that.
the policy.
So that's
It's
something
written
I
in the
want,
policy.
okay,
Yeah.
great. That's all I have.
Okay, Sharon?
No, I don't have anything.
John, anything else?
No.
Tom?
It just, as I look at the deferred maintenance side of this budget for the rec center, it's woefully inadequate. We really have not really been dealing with it, except all of a sudden we decided since 1973, we've got to put new ceiling tiles in. I think, not this year, but I'd like to see a more comprehensive depreciation schedule or something relative to the rec center. So that we have a plan rather than just all of a sudden we need a new ceiling tiles.
Justin?
You touched on small tools and equipment purchases, 01, 71, 10, 230, on page 9, it's up 233%. What is being purchased in there, is that also part of the highlights, or is this something different from what was mentioned in the highlights?
What was the
Where
number?
are you at? What's that number?
It's 01, 71,
Page 9
10,
of 17.
230.
That's at the cardio equipment?
Yeah.
7110, 230.
That is
No,
the cardio.
it's a
Yeah,
rec park.
yeah.
That's a
It's a stepper and a rowing machine.
You're not gonna be
No.
moving other equipment out, do you
No.
have this, you have the space for
Yes.
these two pieces as well?
No, I'm looking up top here.
9 of 17, isn't that where you are, Justin?
Oh, just in the rec.
Yeah, 9 of
policy,
17.
Yep.
Rec
Yeah.
center.
Small tools and equipment purchases.
Yeah, the 233 one.
Yeah,
Right.
233. Is that's the equipment?
It's in the highlights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming, swimming pool.
Because the line item here is 2,000 that you, in the
Oh, there it is, yeah.
highlights.
Swimming pool is still a big attraction,
Oh, my goodness, yes.
and we seem to have corrected all the problems there. and-
Yes. And we gained a couple, probably about 3 foot of deck space, now we can have bleachers, so we can have more seating for events.
Okay.
Yeah,
The membership seems to be up or
yeah,
down,
they're coming in.
coming in?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
first of the year. They're good for about a month and then you don't see them.
Yeah, all the New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna work out every day.
Okay, so for the board, we're gonna come back to the ceiling tiles. Is there anything else we wanna come back to?
I have, I'd like to come back to the golf. Just-
To Frisbee golf?
Yeah, just frankly, it might be enjoyable, but I just don't see that as a
Okay,
reasonable
we'll come
expense
back,
this year.
we'll come back to those two areas at the end. Okay, anything else? Okay, Trace, thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you.
All right, Stuart, you wanna go with RJ? I don't see RJ.
He's here, he's
Oh,
over
is it?
there in the corner.
I thought he was out shoveling snow or something.
No.
I'm the shovel right now.
What you're gonna tell us is you're saving us an awful lot of money on salt. The weather like this.
Here so far.
Yeah. Okay, so on the highlight, we are on page
That's page 7.
7. And then the
budget itself is,
It's like page 12, yeah, highway, begins on page 12.
now basically, this is the budget that we proposed an alternative that reduced the amount to be raised by taxes. We're gonna be reconstructing the abutment and the Colville Road Bridge. I think in your packet,
For this meeting, next week, Monday's meeting, right? Is it Monday's meeting?
and yeah, in the packet, there's a report from the state that happened to come in, so it's very timely. And, so we do wanna pursue that. There is grant money available. We hope to be successful in acquiring $175,000, which is the maximum grant. The bridge project itself is about $500,000.
Now, let me ask you, are the two bridges out there in Colville, did we do one not too many years ago? Cause I got a phone call asking me that question, and I didn't know the answer to it.
The one everyone talks about is the one by the fish hatchery.
Okay, that's what I
On
thought.
South Stream
That was
Road.
done about 4 or 5 years ago.
And that's South Stream
Well,
Road.
longer than
That's
that.
South Street, okay,
Yes.
all right. This is the one further on down on
This is
Colville.
that
This is
Actually,
actually in Colville
Colville,
Sawmill
okay.
intersection.
Okay. All right, go ahead, RJ.
I told RJ I'd open with, the overall budget is up slightly. However, with the revenue changes, the amount to be raised by taxes is only up about 0.8%, if I remember. We have reduced the amount of paving that we're gonna do this year, and you saw the changes in the projects when we presented that to you. Otherwise, it's pretty much a standard budget. This year, and RJ, correct me if I'm wrong, salt costs were down slightly
This
from
year,
prior
yes.
years. Paving costs have been holding their own, they haven't changed dramatically, so.
Right, you never know what springtime's going to bring, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think, and we'd prefer just to try to answer questions
Okay,
for you, because the
alright.
budget's relatively straightforward.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and John, go ahead, ask your questions.
All right, I know you guys were saying that you were cutting down the number of, I guess, miles that you're gonna cover this summer to try and keep the budget on track. My concern is with the service that you end up getting, and I know when we sat around here when I first came in, we touched on the fact that, roads are set to last 10 or 15 years, right? Which would leave us maybe 10 miles a year to do, and unfortunately
Ideal situation.
just to make sure that we're covered every single year, we're hitting that schedule. What was the number of miles that we're actually doing, and if we've cut that back, what are we down to now?
Last couple of years, we've done 6.5 miles. This year, due to the Colville Bridge, we'll be down to roughly 2.5 miles.
And with that, my concern obviously comes, if we're not hitting these in time, are we adding costs later? You have probably one of the most difficult jobs because you're given the funds to do half the job you need to do, essentially.
Right.
And so with that means there has to be a lot of planning planning efforts that's put into this. What kind of system are we using to say, we're gonna have to hit this road then, we've gone out every year, this is a grade? If you have a system that's a 1 through 5 in terms of condition of roads, and do you judge them every year? How does that work?
I do have a computer system that does score all the roads. A lot of times, I look at the roads that we're spending. I consider wasting money just filling potholes. Roads we get a lot of complaints on, like Dermody Road, if anyone's familiar with that. Jennings Drive. Potholes only good for, depending on the weather, but it's just a short time fix. So hot mix is very expensive to do the potholes and the labor and stuff. So I try to focus on those roads, and every year I've been trying to do a better road, or pretty good, like Center Street, West Street, East Street. Those developments with a lot of blacktop, but their profile is still in good shape.
Mhm.
So it costs a lot less money to put a little bit over the top opposed to total new reconstruction. So it's a balancing act, and by doing the Colville Bridge, we'll definitely set ourselves back this year. But unfortunately, because we've gotten the 6 mile range the last couple of years, different materials, different companies have to offer, or trying to do the best roads first. So it's a balancing act, and which I spend a lot of time trying to get the most bang for our buck, but
So with that 4 miles of missing road, are you able to say that, I know the anticipated lifespan is 10 to 15 years, but we have this street that actually in the past has proven to last 20 plus years, so then that kind of falls into,
it does fall into play. I mean, Bennington definitely has streets that are 30 years old, but my own
Still.
personal opinion is blacktop used to be a lot more than it is today.
Mhm.
You know, there was something back then, you know, that made it last. The glue was a lot better back then than it is today, you know, so,
I guess if we're only able to do 6 miles a year, is there a different material that we might, I know it might cost a little more, but if we can't get to 4 miles, almost half the,
all my
half
blacktop now is tested at the plants. It's tested. We hire a private engineer to come in and test the material on site to know that it's the stuff that's spec'd we're paying for. So daily when they're laying the blacktop. So now, believe me, I try to get the best bang for our buck.
Right.
And try a new material now and
I
then.
think to put this in perspective, though, each year we submit to the state how many miles of roads that we're responsible, it's in the hundreds.
Right.
What is the number we usually send up to state?
120,
120.
104, something.
Right.
So, of 120 miles of road that we report that we're responsible for, you know, we need at some point in time to increase from 2 to 4 to 6 like we had been. However, you gotta look at that Colville Bridge Road, or bridge, and it's time for it to be fixed, and.
It has been. That's been on the radar.
yeah, I mean, I understand all that, I just know that if we have 120 miles and we're doing 6 miles of road, then we want these to last
Right,
24 years, not 12 years.
yeah.
And I know it's a struggle, and I trust.
Yeah, and we could talk about it. I could talk about it all day long.
Right, right.
The ground around Bennington just seems to move all the time. You know, things are moving. It's crack. It makes things crack. The frost, the
Yeah.
weather environment. You're never, ever, ever going to get 20 years out of a road or have it.
Still looking good.
Yeah.
And John, in order to do that additional 3 or 4 miles, we'd have to raise the budget probably 300,000 to 400,000.
Right, and I guess that was my follow-up question, so you already answered that. What impact would it be to cover what we need to cover, so we're
Right
not
now,
falling behind every
In a
year?
normal year, we'll do $700,000 of paving. We'd have to push that over $1 million.
Mhm.
But it was wasn't it last year that we put the separate item on the ballot
2 years
to
ago.
ask?
2 years
Yes, 2 years ago.
It was an extra 250,000 to do some extra paving.
Which made the difference. 6 miles keeps our head above water. As-
Okay.
You know, we're gaining at 6 miles a year. You know,
Is there equipment that would become more efficient that would allow you to, I mean, what I'm looking at is just, we're not doing what we need to do to make sure that we're.
it's all contracted paving in which they lay it for the same price we buy it from the plant ourselves.
Okay,
So
yeah,
Well, John, I think simply to look at the condition of some of the projects we're paving this year speaks to your point.
right.
You know, I mean, some of these roads are in really bad shape.
Well, and that's what I don't wanna continue to do, I don't wanna keep falling behind that 8 ball, so then every
Right.
single year
You
we
wanna-
have something that popped up because of 10 years ago only doing 6 miles or working on this percentage of projects, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
exactly what you're saying.
it's always gonna have that impact if we don't
Yeah, we
try
never
and
get
fix
it all.
exactly, and
Potholes.
it's not an easy task when we're talking about a $500,000 line item to try and catch back up, not just catch back up, but become even.
Right, now on our projects that got tabled, I just have a question on Whipstock, there's, the comment is out of place there. Is that 200 or is that 20?
200.
That's 200, okay.
What project, so out of this list here, what got tabled, what are we
Right here,
proposing to table?
there you
What do I, is this in this?
It's the bottom
There was
three
an
of-
extra,
Yeah.
another memo that came out. Here.
What about Silver, as long as we're touching on this, Silver Street was supposed to be done last
There's
year.
a memo
so-
that
It's
came
on the
out
current
after.
budget,
Okay.
that's for the
It is,
spring, yeah,
okay.
that's still on the slate to be
All right.
done.
So here, I'll give you one, you can have this.
Alright, Jay, I'm not gonna belabor the meeting, so maybe you can, I mean, you know a lot more than I do about
This
this, so
is
maybe at
what's
some
in the
point we can
budget
just meet up and kinda go over
Oh,
this.
sure.
And then,
And
then I'd
you're-
have a better
you're on
understanding.
the
They-
right-
Other scenario.
They probably already have heard this a million times, and so it's more for my benefit,
it's
so I
good
don't want to.
no, you're definitely on the right.
RJ, are these major reconstructions or are these
thought we
top
were-
coatings, what's the, is it a mix of?
Safford,
Okay.
Safford Pine, Observatory, Dermody, Jewett, they're all going to be shim and overlay,
Okay.
which is not
Sidewalks
full.
too, right?
Stark is shim and overlay. Bradford, possibly
About Safford.
shim overlay. Safford will be shim and overlay.
What does that
Safford
mean,
will
showing
get
overlay? What does that mean? It's a
without
major project.
without starting from brand new.
What about the sidewalk?
Yes, there's gonna be new sidewalking curve along Safford Street.
Safford,
Is
Bradford.
it both
In
sides or
Bradford.
Yeah.
No, one side.
Okay. Which
There's no, yeah,
east or west?
it'll be west on Safford between Gage and Maine.
There's no sidewalk.
Okay.
on the
We
other
looked at
side.
that years ago, yeah.
When looking at these projects, just because it's come up a couple times, have we looked at the widths of the road to make sure that we're falling in within standards across the state now for if there's parking on both sides, that we're still gonna be able to accommodate that, or we've let people know that, hey, we can't fit this road, we can't make
Yeah.
it wide enough to
I'll
allow
definitely
parking.
make a point to tell people, you know, because.
Just so we know well
The
ahead of
widths are
time.
gonna be the same, but the problem is, you know, you go from this much curb reveal, which people just drive up on and
Right.
use as parking, to this much curb reveal, which they can't drive up on anymore. Now all of a sudden we did something with the road, but actually we didn't, you know,
Right.
it's just inches just to line up the curbs with the poles.
But
You
correct me
know.
if I'm wrong, we're not gonna see the same width on Bradford and Stafford that we saw on School Street. They're narrower roads, are they not?
I think so.
No, I don't think so.
Bradford's actually, I think, wider than.
Is it?
Yeah, Bradford's very wide.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about Safford.
I guess if we're eliminating parking or potentially eliminating that because of the width of the curb or the road or whatever it happens to be, just getting that out there ahead of time so we
Yeah.
don't come
Yeah.
back and say,
Yeah.
Yeah, and with some of they are ancient sidewalks, so the width
Right.
may not be to spec, and when you put a new sidewalk in,
Right.
it may look different.
I mean, people will understand that. It's when it happens and then all of a sudden
Right.
they're going
You could
home
work
with
it
groceries and have no place to
That
park.
first block of Safford Street only has a sidewalk on one side until you get to Gage Street.
And
Right.
Then it's a
Yeah.
double,
Yeah.
so it probably.
And we
make it
didn't
look
get the
skinnier.
drainage all installed this
Right.
past
Right.
summer, so we're off to a start anyways on that one.
So what's our total proposed paving expenditure as opposed to last year's budget? Where can I find that?
It's in the memorandum of December 12th, we're spending $383,690 for projects. And that's just the paving costs.
And that is down from,
So we had budgeted originally $704,500.
and last year we spent approximately,
About 700, 690, I think.
Mm-hmm. Six
In that
ninety-three, I
range.
think.
Yeah, we were gonna push it up a little bit this year, but, obviously the bridge project became a priority.
On the Colville Bridge grant, have we brought Representative Corcoran and Senator Hartwell on board, seeing how?
The grant's not even available quite yet, it'll be another few weeks before I even.
Okay, well,
And those grants come through the district engineer's office here on Bowen Road.
so it's not going through the transportation
The
committee?
state allocates bridge monies, structures monies, to each district, and the districts are the one that decide where the money goes.
I'm not following this.
Both class two paving projects and bridge and culvert programs are funded by the legislature.
Right.
Those monies are then divided up among the districts, and the
Right.
districts grant the applications. The districts
Okay.
make the awards.
Fine, but still, those two guys will have an influence on the district when it comes in and asks for their money. They could be asking, you know, is this, as you set a priority where the grant money's gonna go? Is it going to Bennington for the Colville Bridge? I just think we need to notify Hartwell and Corcoran that we're applying for that grant. So they can, when the district comes in front of them, I guess that's where they're gonna come in front of, rather, I don't know, maybe come in front of institutions.
Well, I don't know exactly how it works,
All right,
Joe,
well,
but
yeah.
AOT, I think the governor's budget does not include an increase, or his proposal does not include an increase in bridge and culvert monies or class two paving monies.
Okay,
That'd be my guess.
all right.
Yeah, and as far as I know, it's just the district engineer looks at it, the two district engineers and the head of the, district
Okay.
one, you know,
Well, I'll be up there Thursday, so I'll talk to them anyway, and let them know that
And we've
something's coming up.
been very successful the last couple of years on structures grants with the
Okay.
state. The Vale Road box culvert, which we installed ourselves this year, and Colville Bridge, we already were successful on the engineering. That's all ready to be put out to bid. The bridge is all designed. It's all, you know, the bid packages are all put together. It's you know,
We
from,
did that with structured money.
from
so-
2 years ago. You know,
Okay.
we got a structures grant just for
Right.
engineering, so that's, that, there
So
won't
it
be.
should be what they call a shovel-ready project, ready to go. If
Oh,
the money's approved, ready to go.
100% it's ready.
I'll ask the worst case scenario, what's happens if that money is cut at the state level? What's our backup plan are we gonna add any more of these paving projects on, so we're not gonna expend that money for the bridge?
If we don't get the $175,000 grant for the bridge, we'll probably do more paving, cause we can't afford the bridge.
Right.
If we don't have that $175,000.
Okay. Any other questions of RJ?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Going back to, maintenance of the roads, and, what the, state highway does when a crack appears and, to go and take the sealer and fill the crack. Do we do that around town?
We have been the last 2 years.
Okay, cause I just,
We never have prior.
that's gotta prevent a lot of
There's a line right over
repair.
there.
I just happened to, I go off Union Street every day, there's one right at the intersection of Silver and, Union, and, prior to that, I mean, Union Street's been pristine for the last couple of years.
That's the crack seal machine.
Yes, it's a rubber, hot tar rubber material. And that's exactly the roads you do, the good road, the ones that are 2 or 3 years old that have a crack here and there.
There's a great big one.
As
right
far
there.
as going up Elm Street, where it's alligator cracks all over the place, it's just a waste of money because you use way too much material. But it definitely gets quite a few more years out of your pavement if you crack seal them so the water doesn't weaken the sub base.
Right, and the other thing that you made me recall in my summers that I worked for the town, particularly when I worked with Roger Cross, we would lay down blacktop and then over that tar and then pea stone. Why is that not done anymore?
We didn't. We don't have they had their own equipment back then?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. They lay down the pea stone.
It was him.
Done by hand.
And they had their own steamroller, Pat Bull ran the steamroller, they'd lay down the pea stone.
It was probably blade mix back then. I don't know. It seems a long time ago. But we did do Middle Pound Road and Niles Road this year. That's the process. Peckham did it, but we don't have the equipment to do that. But it's a cheap way of doing it. When you're done, you're only getting material this thick, opposed to a real blacktop road.
That was
and-
my,
And it's not. It's very pliable. A plow can
dig it up.
chop away at it. But it's it's probably a third of the price to do like a dirt road.
For a
just
little
No, this wasn't a dirt
Seal
road.
it up.
I mean, when I recall vividly.
No, I understand. You can put it on blacktop, but
I remember Dewey Street as a kid, I lived there,
Mhm.
and they did the entire street, and I recall that after they put down the pea stone, the dust.
Mm.
um,
Dust is always an issue. People, cars sliding the tires. It's like
You have those stones on there to go right across.
Like
Yeah.
stones,
Yeah.
stones on people's.
Well, that's why it was always rolled in
lawns.
with a.
Yeah, but they
with a
don't.
steamroller,
They don't
yeah.
all. Yeah.
I was just, my central point was, if it was over time, more durable, and therefore that's why those roads lasted longer because of that,
Yeah,
that method.
I doubt it.
You gotta look at the weight of the vehicles over
The ride,
some of those days and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that.
I'm sure back then you didn't realize it, but nowadays the ride, if the town did it, I'm pretty positive you didn't get a real good ride. I'm sure it was choppy.
What are you trying to say?
Because I'm sure they didn't have the best of equipment
This was
to
before
do it.
RJ was born.
Yeah, they probably laid it down with a grader and then
The wooden
rolled
rolls
it
were
and
tough.
sprayed it with oil, and it's just a tough way to get the product that everybody
It was easier on the
wants
horse's
this
feet.
year. Now,
RG, I get a lot of comments about pet-friendly de-icing on sidewalks and things. Are we working in that direction? Do we have anything?
Yeah,
at
it's,
this point?
yeah,
What's the green stuff you're using? It works really well, I noticed it yesterday.
it does work well, and it's as about as environmentally friendly as you can get is magnesium chloride. The green is just added, just dye, but
Just to look great.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, we might take a page from Mayor Bloomberg's book, and he was using pickle juice on
Yeah,
the
well,
street.
we're using molasses now,
Yeah.
the stuff in our tanks,
What is it?
molasses,
Really?
mixed with magnesium chloride.
Huh. So you can eat it too.
It smells good. I'm tempted some days.
Yeah. Go over the vehicle equipment piece of the budget. What are we asking for? What are you asking for?
What would I like, or what I'm at, or what?
What are you asking for?
One pickup,
Replacing what?
2003 GMC, which was purchased April 7th of '03. So the service life will be 11 years, 4 months. Way longer than we should keep them.
What kind of maintenance are you talking about at this point with a 11-year-old truck?
I think the frame's been broke 4 times
Oh, really?
right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
Oh,
specifically,
must be
what,
those smooth roads all
Brake
over Bennington.
lines and no, you try to.
what does
plow.
it cost you, I guess, in the last year, 2 years?
I didn't. keep
That's
it.
fine. I mean,
Yeah,
just
I
looking at
can't give
those-
you an accurate number. I would. It's the one I drive because I'd rather have the better trucks in the fleet, the more reliable ones. It's probably within a year, 3,000, 4,000. We've only plowed with it twice so in 2 years.
do we track that
'Cause it
kind of
broke down.
information with each vehicle? So
I
we
can
know-
track it. Yes.
What's it being, you drive it on a regular basis, so is it being used for any road maintenance or anything like that, or is it just mainly transportation?
No, absolutely. I plowed with it last week for like 3 days. straight.
Parking lot, roads, parking lot.
Roads, either people down or out, you know, I was without a foreman for 2 months, so I was out with the guys. Yeah, looking at complaints, carrying material,
So it's hauling stuff around too, it's not.
absolutely.
These are heavy-duty trucks, right?
These are 3/4 tons, the older ones, I don't know why they bought 3/4 tons back then,
But
now
this proposed truck, is this gonna be a heavier duty?
it's a 1 ton.
Okay. So we could, I mean, how often do these frame fractures occur?
On a 3/4 ton is used for plowing, it's gonna happen regularly.
Yeah.
You know,
The Chevys seem to be weak up front, in the front of the frames, you know, every one we have is down to an '09 has cracked at least once.
All the Chevy
Yeah.
motherboards.
They're newer,
Wow.
asking me 3 or 4 years. Yeah, so, we do have an '09 that had to be welded this year, the front of the frames break.
My point, like, with respect to Chevy versus Ford, which is more durable in your opinion, and wouldn't it make
We're
more sense?
buying Fords, I
Yeah.
personally think they're
Yeah.
heavier duty, even Chevy guys, you know, if you drive by Orchard Road, you won't, there's, I don't know, 7 or 8 Chevys lined up there now, you know, and, so they're all fans of Chevy, but I think if you asked all 7 of them, what would you buy if you know, just use it for work, I think they're pretty well convinced the Fords are pretty tough also.
I think the issue though, for me, is 3/4 ton versus 1 ton.
Buying the right equipment.
For.
You know, we're buying
You know,
all
the
1
model,
tons.
huh?
We're buying all 1 tons.
Yes, and I mean, that's what we gotta look at, because,
It's heavy
3/4,
duty
yeah, 3/4 tons of
GVWs.
work we do, pushing those plows and pulling equipment, trailers and things like that sort. It's just, I don't think it's smart, I don't think we're gonna get the use out of it that we're at it. We've been lucky in the past with, you know, welding frames every 3 years and this kind of stuff, but you shouldn't have to do that.
So are you gonna, trade in your truck? Or are you just gonna
Unless
sell
another
it?
one dies before,
For that.
before, you know,
So this new truck will be put on the road and you'll take an
and
older
the
truck?
worst truck
and-
will be traded in.
Okay.
Art, you must have some kind of rotation schedule for vehicles and trucks. You're not just waiting till you have 4 frame breaks. what is your replacement scheme or plan?
The
So you know.
the average for the state, I think for pickups, or I know for pickups is 9 years. This one's gonna be 11 years, 4 months.
Others?
We have a 2005 that will be 10 years this August. So we're definitely keeping them much longer than we should, but
The dumps are less, aren't they?
excuse me?
The dumps are less, aren't they, the dump trucks?
Less,
9?
the average for the dump trucks is 9 years also.
Is it-
I think pickups are 10 years, yes. Pickups are 10 years and not 9 years for dump trucks.
And we used to push our pickups out around 7 years because of they do take a beating, they start to rust pretty
Brake
bad.
lines, frames,
Yeah.
you know, they're just in the worst conditions all the time.
But we've had
Now
them.
we pressure clean them, you know, religiously,
I
at
was
least
gonna
once a
note that.
week. Everything is getting totally steam cleaned, in order to try to save them longer.
Well, I wanna say that I was impressed by that. You know, my business is right near the garage, and I frequently go behind, to get downtown, and I was really impressed that you guys are really taking the time to wash out those, trucks, cause I remember when I was on the highway crew, the trucks were brought in laden with snow and salt, and they rotted away. So it's
So,
important to know.
so do you still have a 2004 dump
Yeah, we're gonna be replacing that, and
that's
that's
scheduled to be replaced?
yeah, we use the highway equipment fund for that, which is a low interest, borrowing. We pay for the truck out over 7 years generally. So you recall that over the last 3 years, we've been replacing all of our 2004 dumps. We bought 3 dump trucks in 1 year.
Right.
This followed the completion of the work on the Superfund site. We had to basically stop most of our major purchases while we were working at the landfill site until we could bring the insurers in, who then started to pay for the legal costs. The town was bearing that cost, and so we put a number of purchases on hold. When we finally broke free of that, we bought 3 dump trucks in a year. Probably a mistake, but it was something that we needed to do, and this is the last one that we'll be changing out, right?
It is. Unfortunately, all 3 were 11s.
And the new ones that we purchased look like they're holding up very well. They're larger, right? And,
They're definitely larger. The
And-
tandem, in my
yep,
opinion, is a
Better.
home run. It's just double the material, one driver.
right.
You know, when you have guys out in the summertime, vacation or whatever, you know, you're not down the help. It's the same amount of fuel. They're safer. You know, they stop better.
Right.
It's just a total home run, and which I'd like to replace this 04 this year, in this budget with
Was tandem.
another tandem.
How the blades holding up? Snow blades.
Carbides?
Yeah,
They're good.
they're holding up good.
I don't even think we've changed one this year so
Okay.
far on any of the vehicles.
RJ,
We do have this replacement thing, I don't know if you have a copy of it, but
The
it
capital-
lists
the
all the
capital
town
plan?
vehicles.
Is that bear, is that the material we got for the?
It should have
No,
been,
this is
should've
something
been,
I
we
had
should have
at
given
home.
that to you when we met with you.
Oh, okay, I probably, I'm sorry.
And we try to update it, in fact, Melissa, I think Melissa and Michelle have been working on trying to get it updated from the
Thanks.
last budget cycle, so we'll get that out to the
Yeah,
board
well, I
until.
have it as well.
But there's a schedule on all that stuff.
I
That's
wanna-
awesome.
RJ, something that I hear about frequently, and with quite a bit of frustration, especially from people that are in the construction trade as well as former employees of the town, is a necessity for buying a tandem. And I wonder if you could just spend a few minutes talking about why it's wiser, other than, you know, the points that you just made.
I think that's point enough, but yeah, you know, it just makes so much more sense. And another thing I didn't bring up is the resale value. I was at the truck dealer that we purchased these last 2 trucks from, and I don't know, he told me how much he gave for trade and showed me the truck because it was a tandem. This thing looked like it got dropped from an airplane. It was a municipal truck, and it was garbage, and the money that he allowed for that trade-in was just phenomenal. But there's so much demand for Joe Schmo to get a 10-year-old tandem dump truck opposed to a single axle. You know, there's no one in the construction business that really has, unless they do
Single
snow
axle.
plowing, that uses single axle, you know, heavy duty dump trucks. So there's a great, better resale value. Yeah, it's just, we haul so much materials, you can haul twice the capacity with one driver. It's the same amount of fuel, they don't burn any more fuel, you know, and, the safety factor, you know, we can't buy all tandems because our plow routes don't allow it, but it just makes so much more sense. You know, vacation, summertime, sometimes we're down 7 or 8 guys in the crew, and it doesn't even cripple us, just for the simple reason we have tandems that can haul the material. They're working out better than I even anticipated.
We've been lucky the last 2 years on our purchases of salt and snow melting. Why don't you, just for everybody's benefit, talk about how you forecast that? You know, you don't have a crystal ball.
No. Well, I can tell you, I ordered half of what has been budgeted so far this year. And we don't have a lot in the shed over there.
Okay,
So we're using probably more than
did
that
last
was
year.
anticipated for, at this point, to be budgeted. So, you know, this week here looks like we aren't going to get much, maybe a little bit Wednesday, so you know, that would be probably in the crystal ball,
Yeah,
and I don't know.
so what about the overtime?
Overtime, we've definitely been out a lot, you know, streams have been freezing, flooding out people's backyards. This past week, we spent a lot of time, last weekend, we went from plowing for 13 hours to, roughly 4 hours off. And then I was back on East Main Street due to flooding until 2 AM. We're using a lot of material and overtime right now, but it looks like a pleasant break this week. I
Where was the flooding caused by?
It's the Burning Brook from Upper Gage,
Ice dam,
yeah, all the way down to Beach Street.
We also had some drains plugged also, didn't we?
Not horrible.
No.
No, we had the river, the Burning Brook going down Main Street,
Yeah.
with ice floating down in front of it when it let loose. But we were right there, and luckily, no water got into Henry's Market or Dr. Orton's office. But it went as far as Beach Street, down by the mole.
We generally budget for Joe for 3,000 tons of salt a year.
Okay,
And the last couple of years, we haven't come close to using it all, using up the budget. This year, we're about on track to potentially use the 3,000.
Yeah, we're a little over, but the price is a little bit lower than we budgeted for.
but the chloride
The price came in, no, for salt.
for salt, okay.
We don't use chloride, or we don't use, calcium chloride.
Right.
We use magnesium chloride, less corrosive.
Is it, what's the price on that?
It's $1.
It lasts longer than salt, does it not, when we put it down?
It helps, it's a tool when, the, temperatures are below 18 degrees or something, that magnesium enhances the salt, so it works
Okay.
down to 0-ish. If, last week when we got all the snow and it was cold,
Yeah.
you know, if anyone traveled much, you could see
It
our
worked.
roads broke pretty well, but on the outskirts, it was still ice and stuff, so
Right.
I
You
think
actually
that,
see it at the town line. Yeah, then it would switch right over,
so, it's just a boost, you know. Do we use it when it's warm? There's no need to, as far as I'm concerned. The state would argue up and down that they have the right treatment, but, I think we're on a pretty good path as far as the way we're treating the roads.
Okay. Any board member, anything else for RJ? Stuart, I don't understand on page 9, streetlights, why is that in there? And what are we saying about this?
We have finally completed the changeover for all of our streetlights to LED.
Right.
That's taken us through 2 fiscal years. And I'm hoping that we're gonna see a savings. Originally, we were spending about $130,000 a year for streetlights. And it's we have two forms that we pay. The downtown lights are metered, and so we pay based on use. All of the other fixtures are a per fixture cost. And when CVPS and now Green Mountain changed over, we worked with Efficiency Vermont. Efficiency Vermont compensated Green Mountain Power for the fixtures that were removed and replaced. And we're expecting that that per fixture cost came down about 25%.
Okay.
So that's where we're anticipating savings.
So this 115 reflects what we anticipate our bill will be for
That's what,
this
yeah,
fiscal year?
that's the total budget.
And which is a reduction
Okay.
Of about
previous-
15,000.
About 15,000, okay.
$78,000.
All right,
I've got a couple line item
Justin,
questions.
go ahead.
14 or 17, traffic control devices, I see a $9,000 increase this year. Can you tell a little bit about that? Repair and maintenance supplies is just the top line item.
It's on page 8 of the.
14
Yeah.
and 14 and 17 of the budget.
In the budget.
Page 8 of the
In the highlights.
highlights.
Which one's what is in the
It's the
highlights?
repair and maintenance supplies under traffic control devices.
Okay.
I think that's just a, I can't remember.
Just a second, let me look up.
Yeah.
What number is it, Sue?
It's
51?
51,
51,
30,
30,
220.
220. You got the budget right there. Jake. That's good.
It's,
Or no, I'm sorry, top one.
There's a specific increase there.
it's for the crosswalk material that we've
There
been,
you go.
trying to, get those finished in the right weather, which has worked out. It's been, in the long run, we're definitely gonna save a lot of money because we don't have to, do it yearly or annually. Other than just fixing a few bad spots, but, yeah, it's crosswalk material. We were over budgeted last year by 6,200, the previous year 3,500, so it's just that epoxy type stone material for our crosswalks.
What's the lifespan that you're seeing on that?
We haven't had it that long, but I'm hoping for 4 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you used to have to spray them every year.
always.
Yeah, Ricky now did it.
Or the
Yeah.
stamp, the plastic stamp.
But we got away from the stamping.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
we
was
did.
stamped
Yeah.
didn't work.
Just not as durable.
It's definitely not as durable. It didn't last very long, but in order to fix a spot once it needs repair, you had to mill out the blacktop, install new blacktop, in which we all know that you're gonna get a bump, you know, when you do a patch of any type. And then it was very, very, very cost, you know, they don't tell you that stuff when you buy it, but in order to, keep that process
It
up,
was a lot more labor intensive.
oh, it was very, I mean, this is labor intensive, you know, you have to wait for it to dry so much to put the stone, and you have to watch the sidewalks, so, of course, people don't drive through it, but in the right weather, we can do 5 or 6 a day.
You're just sure you're trying to do more this year than you were able to do last year.
Justin, I hope every year to do more and more of those,
That's
Yeah, we
for the.
yes, but we've done over it for the last 2 years because of those sidewalks, so,
Okay.
yes,
Yep.
we're just trying to put the money where we need it, or where it should be.
Because we still have crosswalks that are just striped. We still have crosswalks that were originally stamp printed, that are now disappearing.
And this product lasts longer than just striping it. That's
Yes,
that's another-
striping, we were painting.
Striking, you get less than a year
Yeah.
to paint.
Yeah.
Are there ADA issues and all that type of thing?
The material, it meets ADA standards because one, it's got a little bit more grip to it. Two, it's, you can buy different colors. We're using a red brick color, so you've got a visual difference once you enter the
What's ADA
sidewalks.
stand for?
American Disability Act.
Yeah. And that process was satisfactory in other communities that have a similar weather?
I think everybody struggles with that, but
Yeah.
I've been contacted by several, different, towns that have driven through town who like it and want the information.
We did an installation over 5-6 years ago out on Benmont, and it's still there.
Yeah,
It's
we
great.
did one at River Street, River and North Street too, and that was the
So,
original.
It wears better than any material we've seen, and it also has a nice grip to it, like Stuart said. It's
Well, those two island spots on,
Right, I just thought
I
of
bet
that,
those
yeah,
were done
they've
4
been
years
there
ago.
all longer, way longer.
Yeah.
Where's that?
I've been here.
right at the
Main Street
intersection of,
and,
Washington and, East Main Street, and then at the intersection of Dewey. You know, those island patches,
Those yellow
Yep.
islands, yeah, that's 7 years at
and
least,
plows are going over them.
right?
Have we looked into it all, the composite crosswalk? I was in Pittsfield, there was a company from Massachusetts, they were actually dig out the blacktop and were filling it with a composite material as the crosswalk. And have you heard of that at all? It's the first time I'd seen it used, and it holds the weight. It was right on US 7, so it was truck rated and everything like that, but haven't checked to see how they're holding up.
Yeah, right, I don't know, like I say, you make it, it's definitely gonna have a bump.
Yeah.
If you don't do anything to the blacktop.
Was there some ADA testing on Benmont, Maine the other day with the street light?
No, the controller went,
Oh, it did, okay.
it did.
I thought you were already in the next year's budget.
I got more questions on it. Why is that light blinking?
Yeah.
We were waiting for a part.
Yeah, and actually, the way it's been repaired now, we should talk about, because that pedestrian signal comes on.
Comes on all the time, that's why I thought it was 88, that's.
Every cycle.
Yeah.
I started to go and all of a sudden I see this pedestrian light. I didn't go.
That's where you wait a little bit longer, Tom.
That's right.
I found myself looking around to see who had crossed the
Yeah.
street, and there wasn't anybody around. I thought I was losing my mind.
So, in-kind support, because some of the agencies, I'll use the Chamber of Commerce as an example, aren't we looking at providing some in-kind support for the bike path where we get out there? And didn't I hear the Chamber talk something about that? That the highway department's gonna help out when they're available to
They're using our equipment.
use our equipment or something?
I think we've been using private equipment, Dan.
No, we did talk about if the highway department gets time and there's some small sections that we could, if there's a ability to get out there, but.
To move material
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that for them was the
That was
request.
it,
Okay,
But it wouldn't be, it's not like we want materials, I mean, it wouldn't be out of pocket type.
but it's only if we're available from everything else we've got, right?
Right.
Okay, so it's nothing there scheduled?
There's no
pre-commitment,
commitment.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, RJ? I would just encourage to keep up with the equipment maintenance, cause that's the big one, and I think, your crew's done a great job, the new trucks look like they're new,
They do.
the tandems, they look terrific. And, the program you used last year, when you pulled the blades off the trucks, and they really look good when you finish for the year, so let's keep that up, because they are also expensive when you start putting that stuff on there. I'm assuming you check the hoses and everything when you do that, to make sure the hydraulic hoses are in good shape, you don't have to wait till next winter to,
We've
Replace
come
those.
leaps and bounds on maintenance in the last couple of years.
you're doing a lot of in-house.
And we're still doing more and more, we're moving forward on a maintenance plan, and, yeah, we keep improving.
Yeah.
What's that bucket truck? I'm sorry, maybe talk about it.
The bucket? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the used bucket truck you're looking at.
Oh, okay. Yeah, 3 departments going to all pitch in and purchase, we'll buy one of those trucks on the Troy Road.
Oh, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
Take your pick.
it's yeah,
So they can put up the wreaths and stuff without going
Well,
up the
more than
ladder.
without a ladder, you know, on
Any
a tiny
standards
little
there,
pole.
When we have trees, we gotta service too sometimes.
The canopy, you know, now we prune them with a pole saw,
Right.
which I had a guy get hurt a few weeks ago, and he's been wearing a cast ever since, and still not healed. But you know, you're cutting things overhead in which the canopy is still coming down,
Right.
so we can't even reach what we should. But and it's very dangerous. It's in the old days before OSHA visited. We used to have a basket in the front of the loader in
Look through.
which
Yeah.
And the guys can go.
you know, fully enclosed. and
Looking
they
at my tractor works great in front of my tractor.
But, you know, we're great, but
Yeah.
we can't do that anymore. So,
You bring up a good point. I mean, I drive by there every time I go down to the airport or something. Is that equipment that reliable? I mean, it seems like they change that equipment in all the time there on Troy Road.
there's a lot of, I've talked to a few electricians in town. Every
Right.
electrician in town has,
Yeah, I
pretty much
noticed.
has a bucket, and they've
I've
had
owned
pretty
two
good.
vans from them.
Have you?
Yeah, he
Well,
pretty much buys
They're
fleet.
fleet vehicles, yeah, so
Right.
they've been on strict maintenance programs, and you can see as the economy changed, some of the fleet maintenance is lax too, so
Right.
you can see, you didn't used to see trucks in there that weren't spotless, but, you know, if you get a truck from Fairpoint or something like that, they had a maintenance schedule
Right.
on that truck, you know, and so there's a lot, you know, there's vehicles of different grades, but they can pretty much tell you, so,
Yeah.
That's
you
why
got
they
your
come in.
pick.
One day he's got all orange trucks down there, the
Yeah.
next day he's got all yellow
Yeah.
trucks down there.
And I
and then
noticed you
maybe
got all the
all
buckets in
white
the
and
air,
they're
so
all-
we know they go up, because they're all in the air. So,
Ladder
whether
to
they
get
come down
to.
or not, we don't know.
You know, let's give it a try. Maybe, maybe it'll be the most used vehicle in Bennington for all I know. But for 10,000, you know,
I think you're gonna see it's gonna get a lot of use. I mean, Sharon mentions the wreaths themselves,
Painting.
but
Terry has water tanks that they have to climb up on for
Yeah.
maintenance. You know, there's a lot of different lights.
we get more involved, folks, in cutting trees, if you don't know that, especially in town. We get a lot of calls. Stuart is our tree master, is that what your title is?
Tree warden.
Tree warden. And, he gets a bunch of calls that this tree's gotta go, and RJ goes out and checks it right away. If it's in our right of way, we take it down. And,
If it's an unsafe tree.
if it's an unsafe tree, and some of these things are pretty large, some of the old elm trees and things of that sort, we've gotta get up there. And, I know we've had some issues on some of our streets here in the last few years that, really caused some problems with the windstorms we had and everything else, and once part of it comes down, we gotta take the rest of it down. It's, as simple as that.
And shade's one of our worst culprits for roads, you know,
Right.
if it's damp or icy or, you know, the more trees are removed from up ahead, the better off we are.
Yeah.
Getting back to the sidewalks and the ADA issue, I mean, that's changed the complexion of what's acceptable, to a large degree, is, you know, between smoothness and widths and things. I've had some you know, who pointed out some issues, a lot of which are already addressed in the budget. One though is width of sidewalks in some places where we have a tree growing between the curb and the sidewalk. What's the width supposed to be there, and are we in any danger there? Are we aware of any issues? Cause there's one on North Street right by the merchant's plot that somebody pointed out and said that it wasn't ADA compliant because the tree you know, encroached on the sidewalk too much. Is that, anything and was brought to your attention?
Anything we're doing new are definitely
Would
all
be,
5
yeah.
feet. We don't hinder the sidewalk around
Okay.
obstacles,
Okay.
if that's what you're
Yeah,
asking.
that's the way it is now, is, you know, and as those trees have grown.
Well, the bigger the tree gets,
Yeah.
the more the root span goes.
Yeah.
And, we try to, if we come up to that, an instance like that, we try to, you know, remove the tree or dig the stump out or move the bole or whatever it takes, but, no, we're not. Everything's pretty uniform that we do now.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? RJ, thanks.
Welcome.
It's 25 after right now, it's a good time to take a break. Let's stretch, let's be back in here at 20 till, and continue on. I gotta leave again. We're gonna continue on, we've got some more of the general fund that we didn't do last week, and we've got buildings and grounds we've gotta do. But at one point in time, we've gotta go to an executive session to talk about the raises for the town clerk and so on. What I wanna do is, I'll stop wherever we are, if we're not finished with the buildings and grounds and the general. I'm gonna stop at 9:15 and ask to go into executive session. Quarter after 10 rather, so that Justin's here, so he can be part of that discussion on the increases of those things, okay? So Stuart, why don't you go ahead and.
Yeah, we're back on page 5 of the general fund. 5, that's the budget. And we had gone through all of the prior accounts. We're starting with buildings and grounds, which is where we finished last time, and I think we just look to answer any questions you might have.
either from the highlights section, which would, if I can lay my hands on it,
Page 4.
would start there, thank you, Sharon, would start on page 4, and we jump over recreation and finish. I mean, the rest of the general fund budget is relatively straightforward, he says. You've done the hard ones, you've done the police, you've done fire.
highway.
Yep, so we're now talking about, the buildings and grounds budget covers, maintenance here and at the blacksmith shop on the corner. I don't know that there are any major projects, but I'll look in the highlights on page 4. This year, we're looking to include an air exchanger in the town office basement. We have a ton of records down there, that's about $2,000. But otherwise, the remaining $24,000 is pretty much what we do every year. It's roof repair, it's standard repair and maintenance costs for these 2 buildings. We have slate roof on both buildings, which is expensive when it deteriorates.
Have we looked at removing that and just changing over? Because you will every single year have to.
Well, they're both historic buildings, so we'd run into a buzzsaw from the Historic Preservation Commission. if we
Also,
had to
slate
do
is
that.
the most durable, it's a rock roof, I mean, slate is a great material for a roof. It does cost a little bit of maintenance every year.
Yeah, it's 100 years. You flip
But
the
it's
tiles, you
100,
got
yeah,
another
100 year
100.
roof.
But every year you're gonna be putting in
Yeah.
whatever.
Or you can buy a 20-year asphalt roof, so, you know, which one's better? I would vote for
But I think the HBC would give us a hard time on that, John. We've tried to.
That's a recommendation only board though.
Yes, it is, yes,
Thank
it
you.
is, yes, it is, but
Like
we'll try to pick our battles, Justin, so.
It's a battle you can always win.
Well, that may be true. So there's not a lot of change in that particular budget.
Do we have income from the blacksmith shop?
We do, we charge both BCIC and the BBC a rent. I think it's minimal, it's $250 a month. We can take a look at that every year. Again, they're both relatively small agencies, not a lot of money available. And the idea was, when we first put them in there, was to try to bring all of those entities into the governmental center.
Now, we do get revenue though, other than that, do we have from the blacksmith shop?
No.
Communication tower.
Oh, one of the towers, yes, the tower we get about 2,500, 2,600 a month from Verizon. And that goes
That's
into
what funds our
capital
capital
reserve.
reserve.
Yeah.
That's what then?
That's what funds our capital reserve.
Yep.
Yeah.
The repeater system, I'm not familiar with the repeater system. What is that gonna do for us? The portable radios?
Right now, the buildings and grounds folks are using portables to move about the community, and our buildings and grounds people take care of all of our buildings and our park properties as well. So you've got maintenance guys, and there's only 4 of them, plus the working foreman. They're out all over the place. And right now, we lose contact with them periodically. So the repeater will guarantee that we'll have contact.
So, but if I understand that line, we're gonna eliminate the cell phones, which saves us 3,000. But we're gonna only add, 3,580 is what you're asking for, so really, we're only looking at an increase in that line number of about $580, am I reading that right?
I believe so, and that's a one-time cost.
One-time
Once
cost.
that's done, then there'll be a savings on an
Okay.
annual basis.
All right.
I've lost my place, so. If there aren't any other questions in buildings and grounds,
How about flood control?
flood control is relatively straightforward. We don't have much planned for that. We're continuing maintenance. Just a little bit of money for engineering services should we need it. As you know, we're still pursuing the FEMA appeal.
Right.
So we spend a little bit of money there, but we did quite a bit of work after Irene, so those budgets tend to be small.
What are the details on the cell phone coverage across all town employees?
Well, it fluctuates, and that's something that we've been trying to get a handle on, John. Some people use their cell phones sporadically, but they do use them for work, and they're reimbursed at $20 a month. Other folks, like the highway folks and water and resources folks, that's our main main aspect of communication between individuals. They're reimbursed at $60 a month.
So at $60 a month, that is their work phone, right? It's not a personal phone?
It's a personal phone, but they use it for work. All of their contact info, RJ's, all of his contractor contacts, everything is on the one phone. We've talked about buying a phone for work, letting people not have to use their personal phones, but essentially then you got guys running around with two phones in their pockets.
Right, I guess what I'm thinking is if the town of Bennington has an account with one of our providers, especially now that they're trying to find ways to put towers up around here, you know how they have the add a line plans for $10 a month. If we're adding lines at $10 a month, we can cut that down.
We're looking at that, John. We haven't ultimately made a decision yet. The police do have a contract where all of their cell phones they're run around $20 a month for their cells. Larry McLeod uses one of those phones for his contact information. Everybody else is using personal phones, and so the level of reimbursement changes depending on use.
Well, and I think a lot of private industry is really gonna have people have their personal phones and reimburse them. I mean, it's just less for the municipality to have to keep track of.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
I
about
have two phones, I have one work
Right.
phone and I have my own personal phone, and I can tell you it's a pain right in the fanny.
$60 a month is about the average, even with the add-a-line, because if you're looking at data as well as insurance on the phone, it averages out, just because I do it with.
But these phones don't need to provide internet access.
Well, except I would say a lot of these people like RJ and Terry are not at their desks checking.
In radar, you know, if we're paving or something, you don't wanna know.
So there is data usage, internet usage for email and.
Okay.
Yeah, you kinda hit on the logistics of it, it's just cumbersome to be carrying around.
It is.
Yeah, it's just,
You know,
And if
it sounds kinda ridiculous.
If the town supplies you with a phone that doesn't have data usage and you're in a job and you have a phone that does have data usage and it's gonna help your job, you're gonna wind up using your own phone and not even using the phone, you know, the town gave you. And, you know, that's one of the things, same subject we were having, we were talking about tablets and whatnot, you know, when you get into personal technology needs and uses, people have different levels.
I think in the long run, it probably.
It's not an easy
Probably
Just in the
cheaper.
labor savings, of, you know, having the guys have to come into the office and come out of the field. It's gotta save a lot of money. I know for myself, I use a radar on my phone to tell me when I need to.
Stop standing under the
Yeah,
metal
last
umbrella.
Okay, all right, but it is, John, it's a question that we've been wrestling with, to try to get a handle on that cost. It's something that's growing, as cell phones have improved and the data capabilities have improved, people are using them more and more.
How many people are we reimbursing?
Highway department, we're reimbursing 3, the working foreman and the superintendent. Water resources, it's the same, it's the superintendent and his 2 working foremen.
So let's say we only have 6.
That's 6.
So we have 3 at the $10 a month and 3 at the $60 a month?
No, those are all at $60 a month,
Oh, okay.
because they're using their phones principally as a means of communication. There are a number of people, Dan, Mike, I can't think of, there's a number of people that are reimbursed at $20 a month because they use their phones less. But it's really an easy way to get a hold of them
Right.
when you're on the move or they're on the move. So I can't tell you how many people that is. PD is all under one contract, and you get 1 extra phone for our facilities manager.
Okay. Anything else on parks and, not parks, but,
The next budget we'd be looking at would be the solid waste management budget, and that's the one where we're asking for an additional $25,000 annually to contract the services with BCRC. We brought this up last year at budget time, but did not institute it. Right now, the manager is the one that is handling or overseeing the solid waste management budget. it's something that I was doing back when I was an assistant manager, so it's kind of stayed with me.
We're one of the few,
Much like a.
we're one of the few
virus.
counties, we're one of the few counties in the state, it doesn't have a solid waste district. And this would kind of put it in line with that, will it not?
It would bring the solid waste management opportunities in the county all under the BCRC's umbrella. Still wouldn't be a district because everybody would be acting independently, but there are opportunities, especially when it comes to the new solid waste management plan, that we could start to perhaps share services for household hazardous waste collection days, for our compost facility that Tam is constructing at our landfill. I mean, we're gonna have to pull all the organics out of the waste stream within the next 2 years. Residential trash is gonna have to change. The state is drafting a new solid waste management plan now that's gonna push the level of recycling up higher. Right now, I think they're at 40%. They're gonna try to push that up into probably the 50 to 60% range, which means we're gonna have to find more recycling opportunities in order to be in compliance with the solid waste management plan. If the BCRC is the one that's handling that and overseeing it, they can look at the towns of Manchester, Sunderland, Arlington, Shaftesbury, Bennington, and Pownell. I think those are the 5, and there might be a couple of small ones in there. They use the Sunderland landfill and transfer station. We should all see some ultimate savings in the long run.
We will in manpower hours alone to keep up with the regulations and the changes. You know, you look at these counties that have districts, they have large number of employees and full staffs to do this thing. And let's face it, Vermont, one of our branding thing is we are green, and the legislature keeps looking at ways to make us greener. And I think it's a smart move to give it to BCRC, who can use the work and let them put the people on to do it. And coordinate with the legislature and the Agency of Natural Resources and the other agencies that are responsible for this.
Do we have a talk or discussion at the board meeting on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is that fee determined?
It's a proposal from BCRC. They're looking at a $25,000 contribution from the town. They would also get contributions. They're already getting contributions from other towns, and basically those contributions right now are paying for a half-time person. This would allow them to move to a full-time person to handle all of the solid waste opportunities in the county.
Does that seem like a full-time job?
Oh, yeah.
You're doing better than, amongst your other duties.
I know, but
You ought to
it's
see
a
this
pain.
plan's coming down.
It's not, it's the new requirements that are really gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Because of the food waste and things like that?
That's part of it, yeah,
Yeah.
and then there needs to be increased recycling.
How is our composting facility?
Tam is up and running.
Yeah.
He's still, I think, building his market. He's reaching out to other large institutions, and that's what he's focusing on
Is that gonna
first.
help us with this new requirement?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because
There's a
we
lot
have
of
it in
places that
place.
do not have an organics recycling composting type facility, and they're gonna have to contract that out, whereas we have a facility here now that we can use.
And he welcomes the,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's vital to his existence, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Stu, you had mentioned that this was originally an assistant town manager role when you had it back whenever that was, and then we dropped that position. So could this be considered an added benefit to now having that position again? To having that be taken on by Dan instead?
Well, I mean, Dan, one of the problems I've had is I haven't been able to hand it off to anybody because everybody's got a pretty full plate. When we upgraded Dan as much for his ability to step in my absence as anything else, so that there's a known figurehead at the table, besides his legal expertise and the other wonderful things that he does. But I wouldn't want to hand off what I'm doing to Dan. He's got a full plate with permitting and planning and everything else that he's working on. So that's been the thing. I've kept it in my office because there isn't somebody to give it to. And you've got to coordinate the EPA visits because they're still doing monitoring at the site. Next year, the state will take over the monitoring of our Superfund site up there, all the well testing. So you've got to be there when they're coming for an inspection. You've got to go up and track around after they've done an inspection to make sure that all of the erosion that might take place on the cap is filled in and taken care of, and you've gotta be able to then document that and send that on to both EPA and the state. I mean, it's just,
Another
it's just
part,
added effort. Get it off my desk, because I can tell you probably most towns, the manager's not the one doing that kind of work.
I will tell you, the electronic waste piece of it, the electronic waste piece of it is a large piece of this thing. And look in your own homes,
Oh, I got a pile
the
right
amount
here.
of electronic waste you have. And that was legislation, was passed 2 years ago, and it's now, the rules have been promulgated, it's out there right now, and that's gonna be a big deal. We're lucky that Casella's doing this,
Yeah.
right now.
We fought
But
the
that's-
designated.
But I would think they're gonna come back after they see the reporting requirements that's gonna be required for this, because the way the legislation's written is, they're gonna charge the manufacturers for a portion of their
Disposable products.
of the disposable products, and everybody's gonna wanna know, what was our market share in the state of Vermont? There's a tracking thing, it's crazy on this whole damn thing, and, the other thing, if you all recall, poor Shasberry a few years ago, the problems they had, I mean, it was almost a full-time job of the entire staff up there when they had a leakage, I guess, of their landfill or something was up there, I forget what it was, but, it was a big issue up there. It's big.
This
Trust me.
$25,000 is probably not going to be, this is not
Yeah.
that number.
So,
I think
yeah.
you wait a couple of years when
Yeah.
this becomes an even bigger line item.
Yeah, I
Also,
guess-
it's for, I mean, this is an administrative fee, though, correct? I mean, it's for somebody to
It's
actually.
basically a contract.
It's for somebody to actually.
Do we have a
Yeah.
feel for what the cooperation level is from the surrounding towns, and
We've-
it's kind of hinged on?
We've had 2 meetings with the towns in the North Shire that BCRC now manages. They do not now manage Pownell, they do not now manage Shaftesbury. Those folks joined the meeting and are very interested in the opportunities. We get requests constantly for people from Shaftesbury who would like to use our facility for their waste, because they're coming into town anyway, and for the recycling. Since you pay at the gate for what you dump, we don't fight them on that, although we are weary or leery of a lot of people coming in from the outside. But for recycling, that's paid for by the taxpayers. So we say, no, can't do it, can't have it. If this comes to pass and it works, that opportunity will reopen itself, and we'll be able to perhaps have some assistance in sharing the costs countywide over what the waste is. And of course, Bennington is the big dog in the picture.
The other towns are we becoming involved with this, so?
Yes.
All the other towns have
That's-
agreed. In fact, they all signed on to a grant opportunity to look at what's the best structure to do this on a countywide basis, because almost every place else is doing it in that way.
Do we feel that the amount is a prorated amount? I mean, is everybody putting in their fair share, or?
Yes, they are. We've got, for the grant, we've got a breakdown, it's based on a per capita basis, so it's fair. I mean, yeah.
Does it have to be based on the number of people? It seems like it's mostly administrative work and working through regulatory
Well,
compliance.
in order to come up with a fair breakdown for this particular grant opportunity, we felt a per capita basis was the easiest way to go. Population, we all know what the population is. When the state looks at what you generate, they look at a per capita generation figure for solid waste and recycling. So it was an easy way to do it.
And we're looking at this as being a yearly expenditure, correct?
This would be annually, yes.
But this is a management fee, so it's
Yeah.
not based on the amount of waste produced by a
No,
certain town.
this is a straight
Right,
administrative.
so are the other towns also contributing a $25,000?
No,
Right, they're gonna be,
Right now, no, they won't be
Significantly.
paying 25,000. Shaftesbury and Pownell are not part of
right,
this.
right now,
But the other towns are already paying into BCRC, Manchester, Sunderland.
at an equal contribution, and the answer
It's
is
not at $25,000.
And since we're all collaborating and working together, and it's not based on a population, the fee that's going out to everybody should be equal, wouldn't you think?
I really hadn't gotten into that kind of detail with it. I thought $25,000 was pretty inexpensive contract.
Which is fine, but if all other towns are paying 1,000, then you start to ask, why is Bennington footing the bill?
Well,
Well, go back to the library,
They're already-
go back to the library, Bennington, puts in 350,000, Shasberry 13,000.
But that's completely
Woodford.
different, because
But-
our Bennington residents are reaping more of the benefits. They're going to the library more often and using the library more often, whereas this is an administrative fee where we have to work
Who do you
through.
think's using our transfer station or dump?
Absolutely, but we have to work through regulatory compliances, and we're paying for a salary. We're not paying for we're not paying for actual service from each resident.
So if we pull out, the problem is the program won't go, and we're gonna end up with the workload of all the changing of the requirements. It's all gonna come down on
It all
us.
comes down to us. We
Well,
want-
I'm asking these questions. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
start an argument.
Well, you
here,
are, I
so-
mean, in the end, what you get is the service of the solid waste
Absolutely, as does
system,
every
so-
other town.
Right, but they get it in a proportion, the same proportion to
Do we have
per
an
capita
idea
that
of
we
what,
do,
of
which
what
is
the
why.
total cost involved in this is?
I
What
don't.
BCRC is charging as a whole?
I don't have that cost.
This was their estimate based on the cooperation of all the towns involved.
This was
Basically,
an
what it would take
estimate
to do.
based on bringing us into the fold so that they would be managing 7 towns as opposed to, because we're Bennington, Woodford.
I guess I'd just like to
Part
have
of
an
our
idea of
cost is
what,
built at Woodford.
of what they see this cost being as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think John brings up a good point about proportionality, but I think that's a question that ought to be answered.
Well, it's the way we charge Woodford now for our recycling. We charge it on a per capita basis. So they pay us, $1,200, $1,300 a year to use our recycling facilities, when the bill for recycling is somewhere around 35,000.
And I don't mind seeing the line item in the budget in case we decide to go with it, but there's a lot of questions I would want answered before we committed to it fully.
Okay, I'll get that breakdown.
I mean, if we put the money in there and ultimately we decide not to go that direction because we don't think it's.
Or
We
say-
always have that option.
Or say Manchester decides not to do it.
Right.
What's the effect of that if someone in the district doesn't
Okay,
cooperate?
so that's a great idea. Leave the money in and then answer the question as we move
Because
forward.
we'd have to enter into an agreement to make this happen
Right.
anyways, and we
Right.
haven't done that yet.
At some point, is the state going to require districts that?
Probably.
Well,
This is all
they would-
nice volunteer process.
I can tell you the state of Vermont has been pushing for years to try. Bennington County is the only county that doesn't have a solid waste district. And our attempts to form one more than a decade ago or more, we're just all pretty stubborn individuals.
It was
down
a
here.
decade ago, it came to my committee and we were stubborn. And the reason is when you hear the testimony of the work it takes to run a solid waste district, you don't want any part of it. At that time, we were better off the way we were with the contracts we had with Casella and everything else handling it. And it was smart not to go that way. But Stuart's absolutely right, it'd be easier for the state if they had, 14 solid waste districts rather than 13.
But this won't change the way we handle our waste,
No,
this is just
no,
simply.
no. Not initially.
Right.
It will eventually.
It will eventually with recycling and.
Probably in the long run it will change.
But this is just more regulation being passed down from the state level for us to handle and fund.
Exactly. It's another one of those unfunded mandates that we all love. Sure.
Like to wa- we
The
love
unfunded
wasting money.
mandates,
Blow it away. We got it.
But over 20 years ago, before I moved here, I lived in Saratoga County for a short while, and there were similar things going on way back then, where they were running out of landfill space. There were state mandates coming down. I mean, and at that point, there was legislation that passed that if they found clear glass in your garbage, you could be fined up to $400. It was just mandatory recycling across the board. They were, and they were just taking over town because. The landfills were full and the garbage was still coming out the door and nobody knew where to put it. So they had to thin down. So we're 22 years down the line. We're getting to that point, and you're gonna see this stuff happen.
Well, you would think that would ultimately show us a savings as
Right.
opposed to a cost increase.
You would think.
I mean, this stuff it's useful to somebody. That's
Yeah.
why they-
Some of it's useful.
Well, and
Yeah,
the
well,
other
yeah,
thing is it's
the
market dependent.
The recycling markets fluctuate
Yeah.
dramatically,
I
and
mean,
that's one of the.
Corrugated used to get a good price, and then when manufacturing changed, all of a sudden there was no demand for corrugated for packaging because retail was down, yada yada. You couldn't get rid of your corrugated, but people still wanted to recycle it and get rid of it, but the people on the end couldn't move it. So when it's commercially dependent, your system can shut down very quickly, if there's not some kind of a machine in place to keep it moving.
Okay, so I guess we're saying we'll leave it in and we'll see what the agreement is, and we'll also pull it out before we set the tax rate in May. Okay?
Okay. The remaining budgets, for those of you, the CERCLA budget is basically the cost that we have for monitoring our portion of the former Superfund site or existing Superfund site. The major cost there is just for pumping out a wet well that takes leachate from the landfill, and the leachate is PCB contaminated. The beauty of it is the cap is working and the amount of leachate being generated has dropped dramatically over the years. We actually haven't had to pump that wet well for 2 years now, so we're looking to go on to an every other year cycle for that cost. That's been reduced over time. And the other thing we pay for is we mow the field, the cap, once a year. And that we are required to do as part of our maintenance agreement with EPA. Animal control, as you know, is in police now. There are no major changes in the senior citizen building budget or administrative budget. And then we're really into holiday celebrations, and I know we probably ought to talk about the Bennington Battle Day amount that's there. We have budgeted $10,000, and I handed out an email from Paul. He had met with the chiefs, and they are requesting an additional $5,000 for the parade this year. That was one of the questions you asked Jeff Vickers to get back to us on, and they have done so. So I don't know whether you want to add that 5, or you want to talk about that later.
Talk about it later.
Okay, that's the only potential change there. As I said in my presentation to you, we have increased the fireworks. Some of our major players are changing the way they make donations, and we're concerned that the money won't be available to us that we've been able to raise every year. We've done the same thing as you drop down to Bennington and Bloom. We've increased that by $3,000 a year. We found that the contract has been $21,000 a year. We're now just barely able to raise the additional $3,000, and we're constantly hitting the same people year in and year out. So I'm recommending that we budget that contract cost, and any additional fundraising that we're able to do will simply benefit the reserve, so that should something come along where we need some major changes, we would have the money.
And that's been level funded for a long time.
It has been.
Even with the expansion to Northside Drive and
Yes.
whatnot.
And that really pretty much wraps up the general fund, unless you folks have questions.
I have one question on holiday, which can wait if we wanna get Justin caught
We
up
have to
here.
get this going, yeah.
The downtown at the Christmas, New Year, time, we eliminated the lights on the poles because of
Yes.
vandalism a few years ago. I think if anybody drove through downtown at dusk or, dark this year, you'll notice it's less than spectacular compared to the way it used to be. We just have the small lights on the wreaths now. I know that some of the establishments that have closed were kind of blamed for, their patrons were kind of blamed for some of that vandalism. I've also seen Pittsfield will take the poles and wrap them from halfway up, so they're not right there in reach and things. We looked at anything, or any solutions, or maybe with the stuff we have, or with replacement things that might not cost as much, but could get a little more presence downtown around the holiday season.
I think ultimately that was keyed in on one person too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
They
it
actually-
was only 1 year, because in the
Yeah.
7 years that I've been out there,
It was a couple of
remember
years that there was, I remember a good number
they were
of
pulling a
dollars.
single bulb out.
Yeah.
And on those old little white lights, you pull one bulb out.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the money that you've got there, if your goal is to find a way to relight the poles, I would turn that over to the staff who work on that and let them come up with a solution within the current budget.
You Kevin.
Yeah, Mr. Christmas.
Mr. Christmas.
Yeah. He's our Christmas guy.
So that's really the only
You
thing.
say we can within the current budget? Dan, is
Yeah,
what
we
you're
could
saying?
do it. We could start phasing it in,
Okay.
and get an idea of how it worked.
Do you
Maybe we can
still have-
focus at the four corners and start moving out.
Do you still have the old lighted garlands around, or were they
We still,
disposed of?
I think that the lights were taken off of the garland.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so
we're using the garland, but not the
The
lights.
separate, that were separate.
Stuff
Yeah,
doesn't
they're
last too long.
Yeah, it's out there, it gets beaten up pretty good. I mean, we could go to the LED lights might be less, more vandal proof, so, Kevin would, as long as you guys
That'd be-
support it, he'd be happy to take a look at.
To do that.
I
Yeah.
know, Kevin.
We're up to Kevin.
Okay, I wanna hit one other area before we go into
Okay.
executive session, that's the revenue side. We have Melissa here.
Yeah, let me just run down the changes we've made so far, because there is one revenue adjustment that was made there. And it has to do with our, what's called the hold harmless payment from the state of Vermont. That has been increased over the years. So we're increasing the revenue there, and now I'm looking at the history of budget changes that I handed out to you folks. It's also got the whole new, those changes are incorporated into the budget itself. The legislature once again has increased the local, the employer share for the Vermont Municipal Employees Retirement System. So that will have a $6,600 impact on an annual basis on the town. That is calculated in. We have an employee who has reduced their plan for healthcare. That's been calculated in, so we've seen a reduction in the police healthcare line item. And then the last item is the $44,000, it actually is $44,070, and that's to create the new police position. It impacts all those numbers that you see in that box, so there's FICA changes, there's overtime changes, healthcare changes, those kinds of things, so. Other questions on revenue, Joe, that you might have?
Question is other than money raised by taxes, is there any other thing that we have, the town owns, that we can look at, without having to raise fees or things of that sort, to generate more revenue? I.e., I'm thinking back to the days when we logged off the property we had. We have anything like that out there? We're talking about the water for Morgan Springs, anything there we can?
We've actually been in relatively long-term negotiations now with a company that wants to buy some additional Morgan Spring water. That won't affect the revenue here, it'll affect the revenue in the water fund itself. But we have not been able to get them to pull the trigger yet. We're requiring them to make some capital improvements before we go along with it.
Would that have to be earmarked for the water fund?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or what?
It's because it's an enterprise fund, it stands alone.
Yeah, but
So-
why water, why does water purchases? I mean, that's a natural resource that we have, couldn't we dictate where that, I mean, say, the money going in one way or another, I mean, I'm not arguing for or against, it seems as though we would have the option to put it in either fund, no?
Well, you folks are the water board,
Right,
as well as the select board, so you can determine how you
I
want
mean,
to
it's not,
divvy up those
we're
revenues.
not pulling that from the enterprise fund, it's not costing, I mean, we could look at that as a general fund revenue, correct?
You could, and if you wanted to, yes.
Okay.
I would
I don't
recommend
know.
that you not, but
Yeah.
I can
It's
understand.
not
why you
treated
would.
water that we're,
No, Morgan Spring is, in this particular case, if we're taking water, the only treatment it receives is ultraviolet.
Yeah.
right,
So
there's
it's-
no expenditure coming from the water fund.
Well, yes, there is. This pump house, the Morgan Spring pump house, there, the two pumps. The generator that we just purchased, we'll purchase this year, the $42,000 generator. All of those are water fund expenditures that help us provide that water to the vendors when they come to get it, so. There are expenditures that the water, the sales we make don't offset.
And when is our contract up that we might be able to increase our fee?
Another 10 years. But they're increasing now, annually they're increasing by the cost of living.
Okay.
We went through the first 10-year period without any increase because of the capital expenditures that were initially made by the company. But now they're on an annual increasing basis.
What are we seeing for revenue on a regular basis?
About $35,000 a year from those sales when they max out.
And we have the capacity.
We have the capacity.
Yeah, they've increased their
I mean, they're
taking of water, I mean.
capped at 100,000 gallons a day. Morgan Spring generates 2.1 million gallons a day.
So we could easily offset.
We could. I mean, there are sales there. I can tell you that the state of Vermont is becoming more and more involved in the extraction of water from the ground and selling it. So that we're lucky that we're already doing it, and we've crossed that permit boundary. Rutland City has talked about selling some of their water, and they're very concerned about the number of permit hurdles they're gonna have to jump through to come up with a means of selling that water out. So Bennington's, we've got our foot in the door. I don't think if we wanted to expand that dramatically, we'd have to get additional permits, but it might not be as much of an issue for us as it is for somebody who's not yet doing it.
This is a good place now. I need a motion to go to executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Actually, what are we going? We should say we're going in.
Oh, going in to set the rates on the salaries.
Manager, clerk, and treasurer.
Right.
And you will find those, they're in the highlights section. I gave you those.
First page, I think, right?
You have to look at the manager's salary, the clerk's salary, and the treasurer's salary line items, but they are in the highlights, so you have the numbers
We need to vote
before.
that in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, if you could excuse us, we're gonna be coming back in open session, okay, in about 15 minutes. You ready to go? Okay, just to explain to folks there, who are gonna see this videotape. We went in executive session, set the salaries of the town manager, the town treasurer, and the town clerk. We'll make the motion at the end of this budget process on how we're gonna do that, because that's how we would normally have done it if one of our members did not have to leave. And representative select board member Corcoran had to leave for another requirement, so we've got 6 of us here on the board right now. What I wanna do, let's talk about the libraries and the agencies. How do we feel about Lynn's budget proposal this morning? And I wanna vote on that separately.
I'll make a motion to accept that as presented.
Okay, do you have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion on Bennington Free Libraries request?
No real discussion. I'd just like to see some of that information on the people coming in and who's using it. I
Okay.
think we saw the 8,000 to 9,000 people using it. It's
Right.
a huge number, but I'd still like to see the breakdown.
An average of 10 visits per person.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, and how about the John McCullough Library? It's level funded, there's no issue there, we shouldn't have to talk about that.
We gonna vote on?
Yeah, let's vote on the Bennington Free Library.
May I suggest that we round the library's request either up to 610 or down to 600, since we don't deal with whichever way you wanna go.
We can round it up.
You mean the Bennington Library?
Yeah.
We have 87,600.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to round that up.
I'll amend my second.
Okay. So what is the number now?
387,600.
Okay. All in favor of the Bennington Free Library budget of 3876, say aye. Aye. Okay, that's 6-4, 1 absent.
And the John McCullough Library did ask Joe for a $500 increase. We didn't bring them in because it was a relatively small amount.
So, again, is anybody not familiar with McCullough Library?
Yep.
It's a great library, and it serves the community over there, and it's used quite a bit. So I'll take a motion on their request.
What's the number on that?
So
13,900.
13,900.
for John McCullough.
Second.
Second, okay. Any discussion on McCullough Library? All in favor? Aye. Now, do we have to do the visiting nurse?
Nope.
No, okay. Everything else is okay on the agency?
Right,
then,
the others are all, there are 3 that are petitioning, and they'll be on the ballot.
Okay, good.
And, okay, yep, we're done.
All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, let's go back over the history of the budget changes. Stuart kind of mentioned that again. This is stuff that came out of last week's meeting.
And stuff that Melissa has made changes on based on her findings as we've moved through the process. Specifically, the revenue, the change in Beamers, and the change in one employee's health care plan. Those are things that we had them in the budget at a different number. And I asked that she make those changes as part of the changes that we moved through the budget, so.
So because we voted to increase or reinstall that police officer that we taken out for years, We've raised that portion of last week's by $35,560.
That's
Any discussion on what we did last week and what we recommended? Okay, so we don't need to vote on that, we'll just go ahead and accept that. All right, now, I've taken notes off of the line item highlights, so let's go page by page, and if any of you, we'll go right down the line, if any of you have an issue on any of those that we presented here, let's raise it at that time, okay? So let's start with the select board, contingency.
Were we gonna address the iPads?
Yeah, let's talk about the
And see if we
iPad.
can address that as part of the contingency.
Yeah,
Which we have,
let's do that.
Yeah, and Mike is here, he put together, the three different units, and, you'll note that the two Apple products, I think were based on 8, but the unit prices stays the same, so it'd be slightly less.
Where did you get the prices, Mike?
Down the bottom, one
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, no, I'm just.
On this sheet,
Oh, actually,
just
no,
from the
okay.
weathers,
No,
but then
okay.
attached to that are Brown's, so you,
From where?
Brown's computer solution, so the one you'll see attached is a per unit cost that's less than the $499.
So let's approach this way. Let's start with, what are our feelings about 7 select board members having iPads purchased by the town rather than individual iPads being bought here? How do we feel about it?
For one, I don't like the idea of us granting ourselves gifts, I guess, almost, and the only way that I would agree with this is if we can prove that we can reduce the cost of administration, of sending these out, printing these packets out, or printing it all together. And
Michelle,
that's-
what does it cost you roughly, off the top of your head, to put those packets?
How many pieces of paper do you?
Well, we saved $800 just by not mailing them out, okay? That was just, that's what we were doing before we changed that a couple of years ago, where we're picking up our own package. I think that was about $800. And, I mean, besides
Yeah,
these
the
packets.
the postage was running at about $5 a packet.
Right.
And we're
Right.
doing that, for 7 of you, twice a month.
We're saving on reams of paper.
Postage, right.
Right, which,
And copier costs.
But that's also, yeah, I was gonna say,
But
the
those are-
copier clicks are as significant as the paper costs, if not more,
Yeah,
so.
but you're not gonna approach
I'd like to
$500.
No, our copier
It'd
costs are
actually have to be
actually
800 a
pretty,
year.
we have
Yeah.
pretty, they're pretty slight. We have
Yeah.
pretty good governmental contracts.
Rates on those.
Yeah, we
Right.
have great rates.
But you
on
can
our
I'd like to make
contracts.
a suggestion with respect to people who already own their own iPads, and that is to do what you've done with town employees and the use of their cell phones.
Trying to come up with a cost to
Mm.
reimburse people for the
Right.
use.
You know, could I just speak to that?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think one of my first things that I asked when we had the first meeting, why can't we do it electronically? And I've already seen since then, there's been more and more electronic use by we, the select board. And I just wanted to have everybody on the same page. Not that the town should go and invest in these units for us, but make sure that we're all doing the same thing. And there's some slight cost savings. But I feel now that it's probably not a good investment for the town to invest in individual iPads for each member of the select board. I'd rather, if we had a reason hearing the board the manager's presentation for electronics, I'd rather see these funds used to upgrade the electronic features of the town employees rather than
For
us.
preparing
For
packets.
preparing the package, exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah. No, the software and stuff to make that faster is expensive.
Yeah, and, for virus protections, I'd rather see the funds used internally rather than for us. Because I think those of us that want the electronic capability can get it relatively cheaply today for personal use as well. I think it's probably not money that's well spent, because we're probably all, in the future, gonna be all showing up at the select board meetings with these units anyway. There's probably not a reason to buy something that's gonna be out of date the day after anyway. I'd rather see the town use the money for.
I think, as far as the cost of printing and the paper, it makes sense to have these devices. However, I prefer a hard copy over an iPad.
I mean, we're in a situation now where 5 members have their own and 2,
I have my own, but
you
I
have,
use it.
choose not to use it.
And the reason I don't choose to use it is that I would have to bounce back and forth between where we're on and the agenda kind of stuff. and
Especially in your chair.
Especially in your chair. I mean, I have no, I read it when she sends it to us online. I go through it, like, I do it at home on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so I think buying 7 iPads or having money for 7 iPads is overkill. Maybe having enough contingency to buy 1 or 2 if there's a board member that otherwise wouldn't need one but would like to use one or couldn't afford one. To even the playing field a little bit, but I don't think there's any reason to go out, and I certainly don't need compensation for, software I already own. It's just a PDF reader in my email. There's really
I
no.
mean, we're using your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I'm using my Wi-Fi at home. I mean, there's. It's not like I'm buying a 3G card for this thing so that I can go to select board meetings. We have the Wi-Fi, we have the infrastructure in there, so I don't see any need for compensation on that land. I just think availability for somebody down the line who might want one is really the only.
No,
The only
I
danger
offer
that-
that as an alternative rather than buying.
Right, and as a contingency, so we're not spending the money willy-nilly if we don't need it.
The only danger I think that might come about is that eventually, I mean, these things go obsolete in
Yeah.
6 months, a year.
Yeah.
So every year when we have a new member on the board, they're gonna want a new iPad. So maybe not now, maybe not in 2 years, but eventually it's gonna come to the,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm on the select board, that comes with an iPad.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking at is 2 members, 3
Yeah.
members, breaks down to about $930 every single year that we'll have to be putting into it, and we're just not gonna offset the cost. If you want one and you use one, go for it, but you're
Yeah.
using it at home for however long you review the packets, and then really at the board meeting, so.
I mean, and I bought this kicking and screaming. I don't like getting sucked into technology, but I didn't buy it for the select board. I bought it for work, and so I already got it, so and.
The way I look at it is, in the 12 years I've been on the board, I have never voted for a select board raise when it's a noted for, because I don't think we serve for the salary, whatever that stipend is, and I see this as part of the thing going along. I think that, let's wait. We know we gotta have some hard copies printed. There may not be as many, because some folks are using their iPads. But let's see what the test is. I mean, the legislature is going to this right now, and I know that, for the committees they did last year, the appropriations, they are struggling with these things up there. Let's see how they do it. I got a hunch, and again, you wanna talk about saving money, if they could ever get the legislature to go to these things, where they're not trading reams of paper in the committee rooms for the 25 editions of every bill they put out there, for the thing. But let's hold off on this. It's
I
a
don't
great
see it as an
idea.
urgent issue, but I think it's a good.
Maybe at some point in time, down the years, we feel that it makes sense to go there, then I would suggest, what you do is you look at the election cycle. We got 2 seats coming open this year, so maybe buy 2 this year, 3 next year, whatever. But from what I understand from the folks that are experts in this, and Mike might have copied in there, this is not something you pass on from one person to another. Once you've got it, it's probably obsolete if you use it for 2 or 3 years. You're not gonna, it's not something you can turn over to the next person.
Well, if you're just reading PDFs, it's not such
Right.
as big a deal, which is what we'd be doing. Some boards will load the tablets and hand them out to the members, and that's all they use it for, in the documents.
Well, and then what happens when one breaks?
Right.
I dropped it, my bad.
Yeah.
Where's my next one?
So
But
I
the
guess
thing is,
it's-
if you have a device, it's your device, you got it loaded.
So what I'm sensing is we thank Michael for putting this together, but we'll put it aside, we don't need it, right?
Right.
I agree with that.
Okay. So, let's,
Money well spent.
do we have anything else? Okay, let's talk about the police chief's request for the fire department. Additional 5,000 for the Battle Day Parade. Come on, guys.
Well, I put this question to him last battle day, actually, to Chief Crawford, and asked him to be honest with what he thought it would take to put on the 50th Battle Day Parade. To do it right and not at the, last minute come looking for contingency funds or something. So this is an answer to that, basically, I guess. We all know what the fire department does for the community, we know what it does for our tax rate, for our insurance rates, we know what they do for fundraising, and they do a huge amount of fundraising for Battle Day. It's not something that they take lightly, they certainly do their part. I would take this seriously, $5,000, this isn't something that's gonna happen all the time, but, if we can get behind them and, and make this, you know, I mean, Battle Day is our holiday. We're one of the few towns in the United States that has their own holiday, you know, and you can fly the Bennington battle flag instead of the United States flag. And I think that's the only case in the United States of that, so. It's something to be proud of. If you're out there on Battle Day, I had the honor of being in the podium last year. For those of you who were there, it's quite a thing to see. You know, the town sidewalks are 6 deep on both sides of the street. People are there. I think it's worth making a big deal out of.
They're also talking about them moving the fireworks to Battle Day instead of the 4th of July.
Let's have that as a second conversation.
Right.
Okay.
I would table that.
Let's stick to that.
The thing is, I'm in favor of the increase, but once you increase it, you're not gonna bring it back down to the 10,000.
Well, I think you can. I mean,
That tends to happen, once it gets
I don't know if
increased,
we
then you
want
don't
to.
take it back.
The thing that, I mean, the experience that I had, I mean, growing up here, you kind of see Battle Day is here, Battle Day parade, and you start to lose touch with the actual meaning of it and what it means to people everywhere. And just my experience last year with people across the state asking, hey, don't you have your Battle Day today, was huge. And I think that we can, I hate to say this, but profit off it. And if that $5,000 can make this our next big Garlic Fest, Mayfest event that we have annually that brings people to town, that's $5,000 well spent.
Oh, I agree.
And I'll spend more if it can bring in revenues for our local
I think
businesses.
the economic stimulus is enough to justify it as well, but what I see is that it's everybody. You see everybody across town enjoys Battle and comes out and experiences it, and I think it's worth it to do something for the residents of this community as much as for the economic stimulus sometimes.
Let me throw another thing in there then, and I hear everything everybody's saying, I think it is a great economic stimulus. I raised what I think I raised last week, it's election year. How do you all feel that we ask for a contribution from politicians who decide to be in our parade this year? Personally, having been a politician, I'm all for it. And what that will do is, those aren't serious about making a presence known in Bennington won't contribute. And again, these folks have their campaign funds. Okay, and in many cases, they don't use the campaign funds, it carries over from year to year to year, and if you look at what the governor's got, you look at what Congressman Wells has got, they're talking in the millions,
Yeah.
without even starting
Wells has got over 2 million.
their fundraising yet. I would say,
It's a great idea.
I would like to see us raise this, because we understand it, but at the same time, I'd like to see us put a notice out early on, to all the legislators out there, that if you would choose to be in our final March unit Bennington Battle Parade, X number of dollars out of your campaign funds will be given to the,
Yeah.
and we direct that right to the firemen's,
Do you think,
line item.
because of the basically constitutional issues of rights, participation, freedom of expression and speech, that we shouldn't say we're expecting, just we should ask for a
Suggest.
contribution?
Yeah, well, however we want
You
to
know,
handle it.
rather than not even a dollar.
No, we probably gain more from doing it that way.
Let them know what we're doing, why we're
Yeah.
doing it, they should
Yeah.
know already, and hopefully they're willing to contribute, and more than just the contribution,
And
they could be our best marketing outlet,
Yeah.
because they're gonna tell everybody, they're gonna show that they're showing up for this event, and maybe it can be a good springboard for us to
At the
make
end of the
even
parade, we
more.
have a poster board, how much, no.
I'd like to throw
They'll be
one-
their own poster board.
The only exception I would make to that, and again, this is just my personal feeling, is the only person to be exempt from that politician would be the governor, because we ask the governor every year to come down here to be part of the ceremonies and things of that sort. And I think, when we're asking him to do a function in his capacity as governor versus a politician, I think we ought to let him waive that. But I got a hunch, knowing the current governor, if he knows the other politicians are giving a donation, he would also do so.
I'd like to make just one suggestion, or just throw out an idea with respect for those that may be reluctant to endorse the an additional $5,000, and that is to have the fire department try to find sponsors to cover that, and whatever balance isn't met with the town would agree to cover.
Well, that means we'd have to increase one of our contingencies somewhere to make sure we had the money to go into. And again, if we listen to what Stuart says, some of our famous sponsors in the past, they're pulling back on what they're giving us for 4th of July, for example. The folks that gave money before are pulling back funds for obviously reasons. I think we've gotta decide to
Well,
either
we'd have to
honor,
budget it either way.
huh?
We'd have to budget
Yeah,
it
we'd have to budget either way,
And
it's
secondly,
contingency, whatever.
they fundraise like crazy, and so they, you know, are they gonna set up another account for the extra $5,000, or they're
Yeah.
just gonna shoot, you know, they're shooting for their target anyway?
Well, yeah, and
They
last
figure
year,
that in.
I know Paul didn't include that cost, but I know they spent more than 15,000 last year, just
Yeah.
on the parade and the bands alone.
And it's not like
That's
they're
it.
sitting back there waiting for us to give them money to do this stuff. They're out there trying to raise money themselves, so I don't have a problem with it.
And that's with 100 hours of training a year and all that stuff.
It takes a lot to plan these things too. I imagine the planning's already beginning on this Battle Day parade.
Oh, yeah.
Let's let them know up front that they got the money to go with, and oh, by the way, they may have a little extra if we'd agree to send a note out to our politicians that we're asking for a donation for them to be participants in the.
I think wording it as a donation is a good idea, and maybe we should come up with a number of what we think. Do we know how many usually participate?
Depends on the election
Anybody
year.
that can walk down
No
the street.
guarantee.
There's no guarantee, but, they'll be there. Now, that's not gonna keep them from walking the sidewalks, and they'll probably do that too, but,
Just go over 5,000, I think, and then we can always,
Yeah.
increase, and then maybe they can go out and find some bands. You know.
yeah. Or roll it over till next year.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the issue is, motion on the amount that the fire department has done.
I'll make a motion to add the $5,000 to their line item for the.
Okay, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? And Tom?
I'm sorry.
That's unanimous, 6-4, 1 absent. All right, now I think that's all the other stuff, right? We're going right down.
Well, just to clarify, there were two questions that were
Yeah,
raised in
second
the
question.
recreation budget. One was the.
Well, yeah, I was gonna go down.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
We're gonna
Any
jump
of
ahead.
the other side?
Do you want, there was the fireworks question too that they had asked, do you want?
Where was the fireworks?
Right after the $5,000.
Moving it to Battle Day, they're moving it to Battle Day.
No,
No,
I'm telling
Tell
you,
Yeah.
you've run into a buzzsaw. I've tried to move the fireworks to the weekend. When July 4th falls in the middle of the week,
Yeah.
and I'm telling you,
Yeah. If it rains for 40 days and 40 nights, we'll go there.
I'm not gonna argue for it, I just wanna make sure we addressed it.
I'm telling you, people.
I don't think, if we can raise enough money to have fireworks on August 16th as well, that's a different
Yeah.
story, but I think we need to leave 4th of July fireworks.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is go to the line item highlights in general fund. Let's start on page 2. Does anybody have anything on page 2 other than the salary increases we will vote on later? Anything on page 2?
No.
Okay, page 3. Anything there on page 3 other than the salary increase we're gonna vote on later?
Yeah.
Okay, page 4. Anything there?
No.
And the point is, we did add that extra police officer, so everybody knows that, that's already been done, okay? Page 5, question came up on the solid waste management. I think what we heard was that we were going to, leave that in the budget, and they're gonna, town staff's gonna give us some information as far as a proportionate share among the county, and we'll decide whether we're gonna participate at what level. Is that what we decided on, or?
As that develops, yeah, but we were gonna
That's what
budget
I
that.
understood.
and keep
That's
that
what I
option.
understood. They were gonna
Okay.
That's what I
do
understood, yeah.
And we've still gotta present the agreement to you anyway, so that we'll
Right.
have that proportional breakdown.
Okay, the only other thing I've got on page 5 is I wanna re-talk the Willow Park, 9-hole frisbee golf course thing. I got a problem with that one, folks. Any discussion on it? Anybody for it?
Want versus need, I'm afraid.
Well, it's.
Don't we already have frisbee up there?
Yeah,
there's 9 holes.
We have it
9
now, right,
Yeah.
9 holes.
Yeah, I mean, what Tracy was thinking is if we had 18 holes, it might have opportunities for tournaments, people coming from out of town, things
Spread
like
it out
that.
more.
Yeah, it would give you a full tournament, you would have more people to participate. I'd like to look at it a little more and see if we can't do something with
Well, my point is that cost will offset what we just did for the Battle Day Parade, okay? And actually give us a little bit in the black, extra money if we go on something down the road, absent the thing. I mean, if we didn't have it already up there, I'd say, yeah, okay, if it's something new for the younger generation, go ahead, but it seems like we've got it already.
Not just that, I think that, it looks like the cost of these things is exorbitant, and if they wanted, we could have them fabricated here in Bennington.
They're pretty specialized stuff. They're really.
At any rate,
But I mean,
just
even
throw
if
that out.
Well, they could be trademarked or something like that as well, but.
Remember, folks,
it'd be
you're
worth
looking at $4,500 for that.
Oh, I'm sorry, 4,500, that's
On the
right.
golf, on the,
Yeah.
net, I think we could, but
And I
That'd
do
be
think
good.
Mark looked into that, and they couldn't have them fabricated.
couldn't have, Mark would not.
What I'd like to see from the fall players, the people that are going out up there and playing the 9 holes, is if they can get tournaments going, if they can join a league or show us something that says, hey, if we join this league, we'll have this group of people coming in,
Yeah.
and then, you know, then it's just $4,500 compared to bringing in $2,000 a year, 3 years we're paid off, looking at it that way. That's what I'd like to see.
We don't charge any fee for that,
No,
correct?
no.
It's
But if there's a tournament, we-
Right, I do think Willow's underutilized in some regions, you know, this would expand the use of the park, which is a good thing, so, I mean, I think it's worth looking at in the future, I'm not quite comfortable with it right now, but it might be something down the line that we can find a way to make happen.
I actually tend to agree, I think it would be a want, certainly it's not a need, I agree.
Okay, can I have a motion not to accept that line item? Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Okay, Tom, how are you on that one?
I'm fine, I'm sorry.
All right, so then we just say, I'm confused. We say-
$4,500. Yeah, there are other small tools and equipment
Okay.
that we're buying for.
So we're
Little
saving
Park that take up
$45 on that line, $4,500. Okay, so on line 6, do we have an answer now on the ceiling panel?
We do. The $10,000 is actually, we're gonna be bringing in a contractor to do the work, because we've gotta pull down all of the light fixtures, so it's gonna involve electricity. So we've got an electrician we've gotta have on hand. So when we dismantle the grid and the current, there's all the light fixtures, there's all the, what were the other things that are up in there? The heat
Yep,
detectors.
HVAC unit,
The
yep, fire
HVAC
suppression,
unit.
ductwork has to come
So
down,
it's a
the old
contract
lighting,
cost,
fire
$10,000.
alarm system, it's very involved. They go through and redo all of that.
Okay, that makes
Yeah.
more sense.
I agree, John.
Okay, so then is there anything on page 6 that we wanna talk about, other, we just addressed that piece of it?
Now, Justin
I was concerned about the,
had a
Retail.
question on the bathrooms,
Where's,
the line item above,
Top.
the 7168.
okay,
I mean, we did
We did the upper ones
we
last
did the
year.
upper ones last year, and
And we've been putting in ceramic tile.
it's a major rehabilitation, so there's a lot of materials that we're buying, we're doing much of the work, but then you've gotta bring in a plumber, we're upgrading the plumbing fixtures and everything else to
Are
go
we-
along with that, I
Are we
mean,
still having a problem with vandalism up there in those bathrooms?
yeah, periodically. That's why when we go to this new, the new systems there, you can simply hose down the bathroom if somebody.
yeah.
When we're looking at these type of projects, I know when we talked with the school boards and the CDC, we were talking about programs for electricians, for plumbers, and some of those type of jobs. Is there anything where, I know they don't have it now, what type of contribution could we give if it was, say, $10,000? Would we then have a CDC group being able to do this work for us and then have a program start up? I mean, what kind of funds do they necessarily
Well, if you look at the,
require?
look at the bottom one there, right below that, John,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the 10,000 is for the bathrooms and the trim around the Ross Pavilion.
Right.
Right,
And we plan on using Bennington school students for that one.
right.
I would assume it'd be the CDC folks.
Yep.
Actually, we're Bennington school students.
Oh, Bennington School Inc.?
Yeah.
Bennington School
School,
Inc.
School Inc, yeah.
Okay,
Those folks did a really good job the last, on the roof, on the upper pavilion.
yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'm just saying we should look at projects as a way to take advantage, I guess, of our educational system as well. And if we are able to help contribute to the kickstart of a plumbing program or an electrician program.
The only problem with that is we usually do these things in the spring and in the summer, and school's not in session then, and so the programs.
But we
are
might be able to
in place.
hire the high school students that had then taken the course in the CDC and, you know, give them some sort of internship, or a lot of these apprenticeship programs take 6 years to develop, so, and you need some sort of experience. It's just a way of us kind of integrating ourselves with the school district.
Okay, well, let's agree on the amount we're gonna spend on the Ross Pavilion and that bathroom, and then we ought to look at how we award that contract, when we award it, and whether or not school can participate, CDC
Yeah,
can
well, I
participate.
think the $10,000 is for the bathroom improvements.
Okay.
It's all of the materials and equipment necessary, including whatever contracted improvements must be there. So if you leave that in the budget, we'll certainly try to do it for less. If we can work with CDC or others, we're certainly gonna do that. I mean,
I mean, I'm
you
assuming-
gotta have some faith that Mark Sawyer and the town staff are gonna do this for the least amount of dollars, but
Stu, how long ago was the work done in the lower bathroom?
This building was constructed as part of the community built park, which is at least a decade.
Oh, more than that.
More
It was
than
my
that, I
first year at
think.
Greenberg, it was 1996.
Okay, that was last night.
That's almost a decade. No,
Yeah.
it's 20 years.
It's 20.
20 years.
So,
Those decades sneak up.
I am older than I
You gonna
thought.
see him over?
so if we're spending 10,000 now, 20-year amortization's not
Yeah.
bad.
Right,
Yeah, it's not that bad.
Okay,
Alright.
so I guess we're okay on page 6 then, we've decided on that. Anything on page 7 for anyone? And we got this, primarily the highway, and the downtown. And Dan is gonna look into the Christmas decorations. And,
Do we know when the next presentation is for the Pleasant Street Improvement Enhancement Project?
Whenever you want.
Okay.
Do you have a specific question?
No, you know, it's on there, and so we've had an update maybe a month, 2 months
Yeah.
ago, so.
There,
Well,
there
let's-
hasn't, there hasn't been any progress.
Okay,
It
that's
is
what I
in
was
my
wondering.
report, so any changes in the status
I think that
or
would
in
be a
the,
good time to
status.
do with the new board coming on in
Sure.
April. So everybody's brought up on speed on that thing, because I don't think much is gonna be done between now and
No.
No.
and then anyway.
Between now and April.
And that way everybody's not more than one time, huh?
You just wanna be gone.
Yeah. Okay, so nothing on page 7. And just for folks, we had a little discussion on the tandem trucks. This is a discussion we went through a couple years ago, and RJ convinced us at that time with experts from outside coming in that it was smarter, and I think if you look at the tandems we bought and how long ago we bought them, they were right on the money and
Made
everything.
very
It saved us-
persuasive.
It's saving us money. And I would just encourage, when we look at the 3/4 ton trucks versus the 1 ton trucks, the fact we're using for plowing, just go talk to any of your car dealers. I don't care if it's Chevy, I don't care if it's Honda or Toyota or Ford, they're gonna tell you, they recommend for the kind of plowing we do, you're not gonna use a 3/4 truck and have it stand up over any length of time. And we've got experience from the frame cracking already on the ones we've got, so I think RJ's made a good point on that. Okay, on page 8, the big thing is the projects, and the total amount of projects now is how much?
Total amount for projects is $383,690.
383,690, down from 704,520. However,
Yeah, $320,840 is moved to the bridge line.
Do you wanna read the streets off that we're gonna do, just so, that's for people?
Sure, we plan to do pavement on Safford Street, Pine Road, Observatory Street, Dermody Road, Jewett Drive, Stark Street, and Bradford Street. Those that will be pushed back a year, and that's the plan, would be Whipstock Road, Convent Avenue, and the Fuller Road proposal, which you folks haven't yet approved, was pulled from the budget, so we'll probably be back next year talking about that.
okay,
And we should probably let them know about the sidewalks,
yeah,
sidewalk
sidewalks.
maintenance.
Sidewalks projects planned this year are Safford Street, Bradford Street, South Branch Street, and the first block of Washington Avenue, and that is scheduled because the folks that are operating Greenberg's plan some major improvements on their property as well, so we want to coincide with that.
And you've already done some of it already, we want, okay? So anything on page 8?
With those streets, are any sewer upgrades required?
More than likely,
Some of the drainage is already done.
the drainage is done, the manholes will have to be raised or adjusted according to however much pavement is put down. I don't believe any of these require massive water line replacements. We've had lead line replacements in some of the projects. In the more urban areas, I don't think we're gonna run into that in these cases. I think the water department's already out ahead of them.
When is the schedule, or when will we have to hit those streets? Will it be another 15 years before we have to hit the sewer system?
I can't answer that question, John, but generally what we do is when RJ comes up with his proposals, he sits with Terry and they go over what kind of improvements might be needed in the short term and in the long term. So whatever's gonna happen here,
we're covered until next time.
Yeah.
Try not to put a
Yeah.
shovel in new pavement.
Right.
Still,
Yeah.
but Murphy's Law dictates that
Yeah.
you will. You're gonna continue the practice of checking the existing water pipes before any pavement's put down. like
Oh,
you
yes.
do.
Yep.
Just to-
Okay, so that was page 8. How about page 9? We'll get back to the bridges, we already talked about that. Streetlights, we've talked about that. Any of the equipment, we okay with page 9?
Yeah, fine, yeah.
All right, and then the final page, page 10, fire and fire equipment. I think that was okay, as I recall last week, unless anybody's got anything on those.
I was okay with that.
Okay. Does the board see a need to go through pages 1 through 17 on the individual line items?
I did that through the, I think we did it already.
Did that through there.
The only,
So let's give our town manager and our, Melissa, why are you here? To take the notes that we have given and come up with, adjust the numbers that we see on page 10, the general fund, highway fund, fire fund. So we can decide how we wanna vote on the budget presented by the, town manager and staff. Do we need to vote on salaries? I guess we do.
Yeah.
So I'll take a motion on the salaries now.
I would like, do you want separate motions on each of those?
Is everybody happy with
Yeah,
separate
we
motion?
should.
Okay, separate motion.
I'd like to make a motion on the town manager's salary portion under 3210.100, that be increased by 2%.
Okay.
For the town manager.
I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? And that's 6-4, 1 absent.
Who did the second? I'm sorry.
I agree.
Okay, Tom?
For the town treasurer's salary, 3400.100, that be increased by 2.5%.
Do I have a second? I have a second by Sharon. All in favor? And that's unanimous, 6-4, 1 absent.
And the town clerk's salary, section 3500.100, that salary be increased by 2.0.
Okay, second by Jim Carroll. All in favor? And that's unanimous, 6-4, 1 absent. Okay, Stuart, we're waiting on you.
Okay, what I would suggest we do here is we take the changes that have been made, we'll put them all together, because when you change the salaries for these folks, the FICA changes, for pension changes for Timmy and I. So we'll be back to you, with a revised budget. And what I would suggest we do is we meet on the 27th to sign the warning. At that point, you will already have seen the revised budget. You can vote to approve the budget and sign the warning the same
Okay.
night.
We'll
So there's
read
not
it.
another reason to meet again.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, other business, board. Tom?
We had a attack virus, could you just bring us up to date, we did get our packets.
Yes,
Something we should be.
At least one employee opened up an email that appeared to be from a bank that he did business with. It turned out to be a virus, and it was fairly virulent. We were losing files. We ultimately had to pull the server. Skip was in this morning, our IT guy. He thinks everything has been restored. Everything appears to be working, so we've managed to defeat it, at least as of today.
Do we have a real dynamic virus protection?
We do, which is, and
What do you use, so I'll know better?
I don't even know what
I
that
believe it's
was.
Symantec.
Symantec.
The virus has to be identified before there's an antivirus. And I have a friend who's convinced that the people who write these viruses are the guys who write the antiviruses. So it's working, and they just keep sending them out.
It is amazing. I can tell you that through my email alone, I'll have 5 or 6. It's FedEx, it's UPS, it's banks, it's all of these things that appear to look real.
Sure.
But because I don't do that kind of business, I don't open any of them. I delete them.
The ones that bother me is I get those that I'm doing, as an example, Comcast. Every once in a while, I'll get one for Comcast, because that's who my server is. And I'll tell you, before I open it up, I call Comcast, and you got this thing out for this kind of thing, and fortunately, knock on wood so far, yeah, they do, but there's no way identifying that when you just see it coming in on the email.
I
Well,
get
we
that stuff
actually
from
had
the
this-
bank computer all the time.
We had stuff from Dun and
Yes.
Bradstreet. They are a rating agency, and I went online before opening it, and they had a notice online that there was a virus, and they had actually, whoever did it was actually using the Dun and Bradstreet logo. I mean, it was all,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Like,
The more sophisticated stuff now also makes it look like it's coming from your internal email as well.
Yeah.
So some of
Yeah.
them spoof your URL, so they come from benningtonvt.org. Just so you're aware, we have been talking, Skipper and I, and some others. I mean, the best protection is to catch it before it even gets into your email, as opposed to after you click on it, whatever's on your computer trying to catch it. So we are talking and researching options for email filtering through a cloud-based service that would prevent it from even coming to your email. And if it captured stuff, you would get a quarantine notice, so it would show you what's been quarantined. So if you did, if something that you were waiting on did accidentally get quarantined, you can release it. And I've used the service in the past, it does work.
We have that in the bank
Spam.
and I still get.
Yeah, I mean, you're still gonna get
You're
it.
still gonna get the emails, you know,
yeah,
I
there's
get
no
Bank of America
foolproof.
phishing
Yeah.
things all the time, and it
Yeah.
looks like the Bank of America logo, and,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Okay. John, you have any other business?
Sneaky people.
I do not.
Jim?
No, sir.
Greg?
I'm all set, thanks.
Sharon?
No.
I just wanna thank Stuart and staff, for all the hard work.
Thank you, folks.
And for
People-
showing up at our meeting on Saturday morning.
And people who you didn't hear testify, obviously Melissa did a lot of work on this thing, okay? Danny did a lot of work on this thing, and of course, Michelle is the one that pulls it all together here, so thank you all, you're here today to do this thing, and, I feel comfortable that, once again, we're presenting a reasonable, due diligent budget to our voters, if we agree on this on the 27th to vote it, and I think we probably will, cause it looks like it's just a little over 2% maybe.
And it's gonna be in the range of 2.5%.
About 2.5%, and just for the public out there, just to know, because I don't think the articles hit, a number of us met with the school board, Bennington School Board, and the school administrators last week. We're looking hard at together, making sure that we're collectively, there's no big surprises going out there to our citizens as they see these budgets roll out. And I think, Danny, we're gonna meet again.
We're gonna have another meeting on the 5th, but their formal presentation along with the town's presentation will be at the February 10th select board meeting.
Yeah, at the select board meeting, Monday the 10th, will be when we collectively, jointly, bring the budgets out, for the folks to see them before you actually have to show up at the polls to vote on it. We think that's a smarter way to do it. Gives you all time, you all, our citizens, time to, hear it and make comments to either select board members, who are talking about the town, or the school board members who are out there, okay? And, I'm kinda happy we're doing this. I've learned a lot in the meetings we've had out there with the school boards, and they got a tough job. You're gonna see a chart, I'm not gonna give it all away, but, I'm gonna ask people when we get close to it to look at this bar graph that we're gonna come out with at the school board. It's not our local guys that are putting the big increase on the school tax. Wait till you see the size of the state mandated, the statewide property tax for school. That's where your big jump in your money is. And I would just tell you, before we blame our local board members, we ought to take a hard look at our legislature up there who approved these things to make them happen the way they are. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that gets passed down, and the person closest to the voter is the one that gets beat up all the time. But I think it's gonna be a good thing when you see these charts that are gonna be presented on how where this money is being charged from, so.
On that note, Mike and I went up looking at the room and whatnot. I think the best way to go is to set it up the same way we set up town meeting,
Okay,
and use the PA and.
I like that setup
mics
better,
and stuff.
because if anybody wants to leave, it's not disturbing anybody, they can
Right.
just move
You got
out.
the screen is free, and then the speakers are all around the room,
Right.
and I think that's the way it's set up to be, so, we'd like to invite Cat TV to utilize the PA and the regular system and actually have a town meeting dry run for once, so,
I'm meeting with Lisa Byer next
Great.
week with Ted TV.
Okay, well, if that's all we've got, Stuart, you got anything you wanna wrap it up with?
No, I'm very pleased with process this year. It went very quickly, and very smoothly, and, I appreciate the increase in pay.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous, 6-4, one missing, one absent. Thank you, board, thank you,
Thanks a lot.
staff.